like 50-50 on the contract. So we might not.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to get started. Welcome tonight. We're glad to have everybody here. If we could have our board members make their way up to the stand and everybody find their seat. Thank you. It is March 31st, 2026. This is our 7 o'clock Board of Education meeting. We are going to start by indicating who's here. Julie?
Julie Jackson.
Kim Chandler.
Connie Burgess.
Chris Wynn. Karen Winder.
Clark Nelson.
Todd Hauber.
Ben Horsley.
And Nicole McDermott. We'd like to first welcome anybody who's here visiting. We have anybody with PTA. I know I see our PTA people. Please introduce yourselves for...
Amy Warren, Greater Council President. Holly Mesa, Cypress Council President. Kylie Jones, Region 5 Elections Advisor.
And the baby that is...
The baby, not mine.
The PTA baby. Thank you for being here, you guys. GEA.
Michelle Jones, GEA President.
Thank you for being here. Granted Office Professionals. I know I saw Gaina earlier. There you are.
Gaina Breeze, President. Sherry Anderson, Hourly Representative. Amy Wilter, Secretary. Amanda Pennington, High School Representative. Diana Pennington, Executive Representative.
Thank you for being here. Middle managers. GESPA. Do we have any GESPA representatives? Granite Education Foundation. I didn't see any folks, but just in case. And we have several elected officials here today. Will you all stand to be recognized and introduce? I know we're recognizing you later, but go ahead and stand up and introduce yourselves.
My name is Lauren Colby. I represent the city of Kearns in District 4.
Hi, I'm Carol Spackman Moss. I represent District 34, Holiday, part of North Green, part of Murray, and Jubilee District. And I taught at Olympus High for 32 years. That's my real name.
Thank you.
Senator Wayne Harper. I represent Taylorsville and West Jordan in the Utah State Senate.
Thank you for being here, you guys. And any principals, any administrators that we have in the audience, will you please stand and be recognized as well? Thank you. Yay! All right, welcome. We are going to invite Jen Johnson up here to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Madam President. If everyone will please stand and remove your hats. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Principal Johnson. We're going to turn the time over to, who do we turn it over to? Brooke? All right, you're up to introduce our reverends. We have the Oakwood Elementary Dancers.
Good evening, members of the board, district leaders, families, and guests. My name is Angeli Luther, and I am the proud principal of Oakwood Elementary. It is truly an honor to represent our school tonight. At Oakwood, we have a rich tradition of focusing on student success, and one of our programs that we are especially proud of is our Dual Language Immersion, or DLI program. While DLI is one part of Oakwood, it reflects our broader values as we hold as a school. preparing students to be globally minded, culturally aware, and connected to one another and the world around them. This evening, our Chinese DLI students are excited to share a special performance with you. They will be dancing to our song, Peach Blossom Smile. It celebrates the joy of spring, the beauty of peach blossoms, and the happiness that comes from nature and friendship. It expresses a warm, uplifting feeling, like smiling together under blooming trees and enjoying life's simple beauties. Through their performance, our students hope to share that same sense of joy, harmony, and bright spirit with all of you. Thank you for your continued support of our students and programs. We are proud to be Oakwood. Please enjoy the performance.
看到
Thank you so much, Oakwood dancers. You guys were amazing, so much fun to watch. We're gonna go ahead and go on to our Good News Minute. Clark, will you start? I guess. Let's mix it up and start with. Oh, okay. Karen. We'll start with Karen. Go ahead, Karen.
All right, my Good News Minute. I'm mainly going to focus on attending Aladdin at Hunter High, and this was the. This is with the special ed kids. That's not the unified. That's the word. The unified production, and let me tell you, they did a wonderful job. Charity Parks out there, the drama director at Hunter High, is phenomenal, absolutely amazing. And Hunter High in general has such a great unified program. Sports, drama, you name it. They incorporate those kids. And to see Aladdin, some of the leads had little, they're buddies. They call them buddies, and they just become really lifelong friends. But so as they go and forget a line, you would see them turning, and then they would provide the line, but they really didn't miss it without a beat. It was just so rehearsed and so well done. And so that was definitely the highlight of the last month for me and my Good News Minute to spotlight. I also have appreciated going around to different community councils, and it's fun to see how creative parents and faculties when working together can be. So a particular thing at Valley Junior High is they're really working on attendance. Attendance across our district, actually across the nation really, is down, and it's a struggle to get kids to school. And so you're seeing schools come up with different programs and incentives and basically motives to come to school. So for the third quarter, the big prize at Valley Junior High was to go see the new Mario movie during school hours. And but it was just, it was phenomenally attended. And so kids were like, okay, here's the rules. Here's, I can't have any unexcused absences. I can't be late more than twice in this whole quarter. I can't, and they knew the rules and they worked towards it. And so it's just fun to go around to these different schools and see what different schools are coming up with. They know their school the best, and so every school's different. You got to pull the right levers to what means the most for kids there. So those are my two highlights.
Thanks, Karen. Go ahead, Clark.
I was invited last night to attend a PTA awards night for the Cottonwood Network, and it was really a pleasure to listen to the various recognitions that were provided and that were presented. And more than anything, I walked away impressed with both the unity amongst these network schools and really the contribution that so many parents provide to our schools, that we could not operate our schools without them, and they are such an important part of our community and such an important part of our neighborhoods that make our schools really the focal point of our neighborhoods and our communities. So it's really grateful to be a part of that and witness their great contributions last night. Thanks.
Go ahead.
All right, I just want to highlight two things. The first one is we had last night and this morning a Hunter Network Community Council meeting and a Cypress Network Community Council meeting. Superintendent Horsley asked for these, and what I was really impressed with is the parents that showed up and came prepared to talk about issues that not just affect right at their school, but also in the whole network and the community as a whole. And so I just appreciate the parents that were willing to come yesterday afternoon and this morning at 7 a.m. That was our other one. So I know it wasn't an ideal time for every parent to be there, but there was good representation for most of the network schools. And it was good to hear firsthand how certain things do affect, in the elementary, still affect our high school and our high school and vice versa. So I appreciated attending those. And then the highlight I had last week, I was leaving our ELT meeting and our communications department, Jen Bodell, called and said, hey, you need to come to Magna Senior Center right now if you can. I'm like, sure, okay. So I went, and Brock Bank STEM had a class that had put on a senior ball, a senior prom for our seniors at the Magna Rec Center. And it was so fun. So it was just these great seniors in our community that had these junior high kids come out and dance with them and take pictures, and it was just so fun. And the more I dug into it, I was shocked because this was actually done by a math class. So the this is a project from the K through 12 math specialist, Heather Riddle, put this together. And with Mrs. Gardner, one of the math teachers there, they came up with this curriculum-based prom. And I was like, tell me how this worked. And Heather sent it to me, but they had to do the budget. They had to plan the space and how many people they could have. They had to plan how to pay. They had a budget and how to plan refreshments, decorations. They made all of the seniors a rose that they could have, and they had to use their skills to put this together. I thought it was one of the best things I've ever attended with a junior high. I've been to a lot of schools where we have our groups come in and tutor kids, but I've never seen this happen this way with a math class. And the kids that participated loved it. They were asking to request songs, and they were grabbing seniors, and seniors were grabbing the kids, and they were dancing, and it was so much fun. So thank you to our math department. Thank you for Brockbank for allowing students to do something different. In math class, you don't think you're going to be planning a prom. So I thought it was fantastic.
Thanks. Connie?
I was able to attend Eisenhower's play, the junior high. It was just a junior, the Mean Girls junior play, which I was very impressed how they put it together. Of course, the students did wonderful work, and I'm so grateful to teachers and everyone that gets involved to do this on a junior high level. Many, many students were involved, and I always appreciate the more students they can get involved, the better it is. So I wanted to thank Ben and so many of the leaders of the district who are willing to go out and meet with the community and meet with the teachers also. I think it's a wonderful thing that they will talk with everyone so that they can get a well-rounded how the district should be worked and how it should include all of us, community, teachers, everyone. Thanks.
Thanks, Connie. Kim?
Thank you. I know a lot of things have been going on recently. I've been invited to some STEM nights. We've had plays. We've had the community council meetings that have been mentioned already, the network community councils. Unfortunately, I've been out of town for much of the month, so haven't been able to attend these things. But just want to acknowledge that I know that they're happening, and I'm appreciative of those putting in their time and effort for those things to go on. I do want to comment on our cute Oakwood announcers who were just here. When I was that age, I don't think you could have bribed me with $1 million to stand in front of a room full of adults like this and perform anything. And so I just want them and all other student performers that we've had before us over time to know that they're doing a great job and that I admire their willingness to be here and to share their talents with us. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Julie?
I just want to highlight that two things from this month. I got to sit in on, it's not my first time sitting in on a principals meeting that's network meeting, but I want to talk about this one. I sat in on a Cottonwood High network. So what that means is the high school, the junior high, and the elementary principals that all feed into the same high school get together, and they talk about the families that are in their school network and geography, and also about the ways that they are coordinating with each other to take care of those students from kindergarten to 12th grade. And what really struck me is, first of all, the way that these principals tended to understand what was going on in each other's schools so well. And the other thing that was interesting to me was to see the just serious advocacy that each principal had for their students. When there was a decision made or something that was going to happen and it wasn't going to work for that principal students. I mean, they were right in there with, well, let me tell you, that's not going to work, and this is why, and we better figure that out. And they were not budging on making sure that their students' needs were cared for, and you could tell how much they care about their students. The second thing I wanted to say is I really wanted to just highlight that we have a secretary in my neighborhood who is retiring, who I think has been there 30 years at Morningside Elementary. Her name is Miss Lisa. I don't know her last name because I just call her Miss Lisa. Lisa Turner. Thank you, Danielle. Lisa Turner, and she has been such a remarkable part of our school community at Morningside for 30 years. And I stood in line that felt a little bit like a wedding reception to see her and get my picture taken with Miss Lisa. And there was a group of maybe 6th or 7th grade boys in front of me who were just so excited to talk to her. And they each went up to her and gave her a hug. And I was so touched that those boys who, that's not the age when you really usually care about your secretary, but there they are, like they showed up specifically for this. And so, every person in our school makes a big difference and can impact a kid. And Miss Lisa has.
Thanks, Julie. I've had the opportunity, this has been a busy month, to go to several school community councils and have really enjoyed visiting with those communities. I do want to also echo what Karen said. I don't know how you can go to the Hunter High School production with the Unified Drama class and see those kids perform and walk away with your eyes dry. It's just incredible. Those kids do an amazing job. I admire the kids who are there to help out, and also Miss Parks, Miss Chelsea Parks is incredible to do that. And I know it's a labor of love for her. It's often not recognized as that. I have also had the opportunity to go to both Benyon Junior High and Bonneville Junior High's musicals. Benyon's is still going if anybody wants to see Descendants. They do a fantastic job one more night. And then Peter and the Starcatcher at Taylorsville, which if you don't know the story, Peter and the Starcatcher is kind of the background of Peter Pan, and it's hilarious, and they did an amazing job. And I know a lot of our drama kids are going to state and to competitions, so just hats off to those teachers. I did have the opportunity to judge. It was kind of fun to judge one of our junior high orchestra festivals. I can't get paid for it, but I said I'll just do it because I love to do that. And so I had the opportunity to listen to 4 of our orchestras from the junior highs. And I just want to gush for a moment because I think we get this, we have some bad reputation as far as, they don't have as good of kids or whatever. Oh my gosh, they blew me away. Those 4 orchestras that I heard did a phenomenal job, and I just want to applaud them and their teachers and the schools that are supporting them. Just the orchestras, anything like that, any of the fine arts, being able to be involved in that. It gives a place for our kids to be involved and a reason for the kids to be there at school, and you could see just how much they enjoyed it and how much they loved it, and they also got to go to lunch after, which I think is a bonus, but it was just a fantastic thing. And then last, we're starting to recognize our 30-year teachers and amazing staff members that we have working for the district, and I made them reschedule Janet Vorwaller, who works over at the cafe. It's her 30 years, and I said, will you please schedule it for this week, because this is my spring break, and so I can come. And so they did, and so I got to go do that today. But we just want to recognize we have some amazing, incredible teachers, educators here in this district who have worked for us for quite a while, and the impact that they have on the students here, we appreciate all that they do. So that's my Good News Minute. And we're going to go ahead and move on to our recognitions. We're first I'm going to turn the time over to Todd, even though Chris isn't here. And as an audit committee, I think we need to embarrass him when he is at the audit committee because he isn't here.
Great. Granite School District received the ASBO International's Certificate of Excellence for Financial Reporting. So if you remember back in January, we had the audit report. That financial document is what we received the recognition. So we wanted to recognize Chris and his accounting team for all the hard work and hours that went into accomplishing that task.
So maybe we'll get together and figure out a way that we can go in and recognize them some other time.
Have to sneak in on audit committee.
We'll bring some cookies or something for him. And I'm going to turn the time over to Superintendent Horsley. We have our legislative champions to recognize today.
Thank you, Board President and board members. I'd like to invite Senator Wayne Harper and Representative Carol Moss to join me up here. As they're doing so, I'm going to take a few minutes after our most recent legislative session to recognize legislators who've had a powerful impact and supported Granite School District in our effort to support our children and our core mission. I'm recognizing these two legislators. Neither of them ran any legislation for us this year, and we were so very grateful. In fact, Senator Harper was very responsive on a couple of bills that we hope to alter and amend, and was just always very helpful in assisting us. And again, it's always nice to have responsive individuals who are trying to understand the issues. One thing that outside of the legislative session that Senator Harper was part of was in his old job, his old career, he helped through the county identify some unspent funds that should have come back to the school district to help with our capital needs that we should have received. And with his due diligence and work, we were able to get some additional funding that should have come our way in the first place. So we're very grateful to Senator Harper, not only as an outstanding legislator, but also a good citizen and supporter from Taylorsville. So let's give him a round of applause. And then to my right here, I have Representative Carol Moss. Now, I always know when I do something wrong up on the Hill because Representative Moss will let me know. And she is always in constant, we probably text each other endlessly throughout the session. And in fact, the House Committee Chair last year texted me and said, stop texting Representative Moss. She's making our meeting go longer. And I said, no, she is helping us. She is standing up for public education. She's helping with our kids, and she does an outstanding job. This is her last legislative session, and she has not only been a valuable asset on the Hill, but an outstanding member of our general community in Granite School District and a valuable teacher at Olympus High School. You are the longest tenured member of the House, is that correct?
Well, right now.
No, in the House.
In the House, yes,
Yes, in the House.
Right.
Yeah. Don't worry about the Senate. Nobody cares about the Senate.
I'm 1 year ahead of Jim Dunnigan.
Oh, very good, very good. So not only did you have a distinguished career as a legislator, but more importantly as one of our teachers here in Granite School District, and we're ever so very grateful. Can we give her a huge round of applause?
Just one quick. I would just like to acknowledge my daughter, Jill Thackeray, who's over here. She has taught English, AP and IB English at Skyline for 26 years plus a few years at Valley. Yeah, so 34 years of teaching, and she's also been department chair. And she learned nothing from watching her mother grade essays night after night, weekends and holidays, because she went into English, but I'm very proud of her. Thank you.
There's a microphone, therefore we take it.
I know.
It's been my privilege to work with Granite District and Jordan District for many, many years. I've served, believe it or not, I've served for 8 years on the PTA Council on the school and council level. That was way back in the days when we lived in Kearns. Served on the West Jordan City Council and also in the House and the Senate. And I love education and all that you do. These wonderful students from Oak Ridge doing their dance here. I do happen to have Calvin Smith and Banyan Junior High in my district, and they're always doing the lion dance. We bring them up every year. Yep, back there to go through and do it, and I just love it. And I'm glad that I could help Todd find nearly $1 million that should have come to the district that did not. And it was wisely invested around the district, but especially in Taylorsville High School to get the seating and sound and everything done. So thank you for your hard work on doing so many good things.
Good to see you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Get a picture real quick? Here, in the middle.
And you're always responsive. You answer my texts. And it's very important when we're sitting in those meetings, when we're listening to people that are saying things that are false, that I can text them and say.
It's always nice to have somebody to vent to.
Yes.
Or get the correct story.
Right.
That.
All right, 1, 2, 3.
Let's give him another round of applause.
I'm going to turn the time over for the next presentation to Dr. Noel Converse.
Thank you, Board President, board members, and guests. I'd like to invite Isabel Miller up. Board, Isabel Miller is being honored tonight for a very special award. She's a Hunter High School Sterling Scholar in Forensic, Academic All-State for Utah, first place National Speech and Debate Association National Qualifier in Original Oratory, so I wouldn't want to debate her. Academic All-American from the NSDA, and she also received the Seal of Premier Distinction from the NSDA. So I just want to explain a little bit. In order to be Academic All-American, only 2% of the NSDA are awarded this honor. So it's very distinguished. And what it means is she's completed at least 5 semesters of high school, demonstrated outstanding character and leadership, and earned a GPA of 3.7 on a 4.0 scale at least, or its equivalent. So it's just really, really special and dedicated student. The Premier Distinction is the highest degree in National Speech and Debate Association Honor Society, and less than 3% of the NSDA members earn the Premier Distinction prior to graduation. So this milestone is a celebration of the hundreds of hours that Isabel has spent preparing, practicing, and competing to hone her communication and leadership skills. So we're just very, very excited to have her here, and I'm going to go ahead and invite up her leadership team as well, and you're welcome to go shake the hands of the board members, and then you'll take a picture. Okay, Hunter High, come on up.
Squish in. We don't want to be seen.
1, 2, 3.
And then I think you have parents in the audience, if you'll also stand and be recognized. Thank you, Isabel. Okay, I have one more award to announce. And so if Yaselin Zavala, are you here, Yaselin? Come on up. And then anyone who's here to represent her, come on up too, because you'll be in the picture, so you don't be shy. Yeah. Okay, so Granger High School administration's also here, and staff. So Yaselin. So this is a really exciting one as well. This is our first ever Granite School District state win for 2D Best of Show at the Utah State High School Competition hosted by Springville Art Museum. Of the 200 high schools across Utah State, over 1,000 pieces were submitted, and of those, only 339 were accepted, and 89 of those artworks received awards of various. Jocelyn's was awarded the top award in the 2D category. And so basically, this is the visual arts equivalent of winning state for football. So if you want to put it in perspective, that's what she's done. And I believe, Jocelyn, remind me, but you've been our Christmas card winner before as well. So we just want to really recognize the amazing artwork and dedication that Jocelyn has given. And thank you, Granger team, for coming. So you can go ahead and shake your hand.
Did you bring a copy of her artwork?
You know what? I wish we had a copy of her artwork. Do you guys have a copy of her? Do you have a copy of her artwork here? I think we don't have it. That's silly. Let me see if I can find it,
Of course you do.
Thanks. Yeah. Thank you.
You can find it later. Will you send it to us? Send it to me and I'll.
Center.
Get closer.
Great.
Behind you.
All right, 1, 2, 3.
Okay. And any parent, yes, parents? One more for parents.
Don't clap yet.
Bring it up. Oh, you just texted it to me. Okay.
There we go.
Will Jocelyn's parents please stand to be recognized also? Are your parents here? Wave. She's in the middle. Wave.
Can I just say go West Valley, because both of those, we have one from Hunter and one from Granger, so West Valley is in the house. Sorry,
That's okay. All right, thank you so much. Yeah, well represented. Great job, you guys. We have up next, we do have, sorry, I gotta get to that place. Elected officials participation. We already invited our elected officials, and I think, we do have our Kearns City Council. Would you like to, do you want to say anything, or are you just here for the ride? Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate Kearns being represented too. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and move on to patron participation. Just as a reminder, patron participation will be 3 minutes. Do you have your timer? Okay. Ms. Michelle will make sure that you guys know when your 3 minutes is up. Please make sure that you remember that, I didn't pull up my usual thing, that your remarks are appropriate for those who might be listening, as we do also have young children that might be listening. If it is something about personnel issues are not allowed to be brought up here in this setting, but we are happy to talk about those outside of this. And please keep your remarks to appropriate for what we have. So first, we're going to invite up Reed Taylor, and if you will state your name, please, in the microphone, just so that we have it for the record, and then begin your remarks.
I'll get you.
Oh man, this is made for short people.
Yes, it is. And you kind of have to speak right into the microphone.
I know,
so
like
we can
get
hear
down,
you.
like, got to do some
So just-
squatting. All right. My name's Reed Taylor from West Valley City. Good evening, members of the board and Superintendent Horsley. As I said, my name is Reed Taylor. On March 18th, I sent an email to Ms. McDermott offering a private meeting on a 6-month governance review of Administrative Memorandum 130 and electronic device policy implementation across the Granite School District junior high campuses. Unfortunately, I did not receive a response. I provided 13 copies of this review for the board and the superintendent, and one for the official record. You guys will have it right here. It's not a list of grievances, it's a documented examination of what I'm calling the boardroom to classroom gap, the distance between what this board has published and what families actually encounter. To measure that gap, I developed a descriptive tool called the Escalation Compression Index, or the ECI. It scores each Granite campus published electronic device policy based solely on when guardian contact is triggered in the published escalation sequence. Among 12 junior high campuses with scoreable published policies, the ECI range is 1 to 5, a 4-point spread across schools governed by the same AM 130, signed by the superintendent. At one campus, a student receives a warning, and AM 130 designates as its first offense. At another, mandatory parent in-person pickup is required for the same first offense. A student's disciplinary experience in Granite is determined by their campus attendance or their zip code or their boundary. 4 of 16 campuses, or 25%, had no publicly accessible policy at all, despite AM 130 Section A2 requiring website publication. What concerns me most for this board's oversight role is documented in Appendix F, Finding 1. I have submitted multiple grammar requests for records of administrative actions that district officials had explicitly described to me in writing. Each was certified searched and no records found, even when I had a responsive record. On March 14th, a narrow request for Law and Policy Committee records submitted through General Counsel Larson produced responsive records in 47 minutes. Those records include the records officer's own meeting notes from a committee meeting he personally attended on October 20th, 25, records that were directly responsive to 4 prior requests, each certified no records found. The board cannot have a reliable view of administrative performance if the transparency mechanism it depends on does not produce consistent results. This review documents a complete absence of records reflecting the administrative training the superintendent directed in that October meeting. 6 months later, the variance that initiated this review remains observable at the campus where it was first identified and was checked again earlier today across all 16 junior high campuses. I'm asking this board to place 3 questions before the administration and report back to the board in their April meeting. What documentation standard governs district-wide policy decisions? What search methodology governs grammar responses, and what actions followed the superintendent's referral of this matter to the Law and Policy Committee meeting in October of 25? Policy without oversight is a published intention, not a practice standard. I invite the board and the Law and Policy Committee to review these findings and ask the administration to account for them. Thank you.
Mr. Taylor, appreciate you being here. We're going to invite up Daniel Hausman next. Likewise, will you please state your name just for the record in the microphone?
Good evening. Danielle Hausman speaking only for myself. I'm here tonight out of deep concern about the planned reduction of special education teacher FTE in Granite Elementary schools. When a school is just 1 or 2 students away from qualifying for a full-time special education teacher and the district doesn't account for incoming kindergartners, it creates a predictable problem. It is very likely that at least 1 kindergartner will arrive needing services, and when that happens, that school will then qualify for a full-time teacher, but the other half of that FTE may already be assigned elsewhere, leaving the school to juggle 2 half-time teachers instead of providing 1 consistent educator. This is an unnecessary disruption for students and families. I'm also concerned about how these decisions are being made. Changes of this magnitude should not happen without meaningful stakeholder input. Have principals, special education teachers, the board, and parents been consulted? These cuts ignore the fact that short-term investment leads to long-term stability and reduced costs. My son is proof of that. He began receiving services in kindergarten and was recently exited from special education in 6th grade because he was so well supported early on. Utah's special education rules require services in accordance with the unique needs of the student. Staffing must be based on actual needs, not fixed ratios or backward-looking counts. To meet these legal obligations, districts must consider service intensity and frequency, disability categories, push-in versus pull-out needs, total IEP minutes, and the indirect work special educators do to support the whole school. Under IDEA, districts must have enough personnel to implement every IEP as written. If these cuts prevent timely and appropriate services, the district risks non-compliance with federal law. My request is that you slow down, engage with stakeholders, and carefully consider all angles before making any cuts to special education. At the very least, please include the needs of incoming kindergartners in your ratio formula. These are the same students who will be directly affected by the mandatory third grade retention legislation. If Utah will require students to repeat third grade for not reading on grade level, shouldn't we be giving them more supports and not less? Reducing resources in the early grades will only increase academic and financial costs later. I urge you to choose a path that honors both the law and our shared values by protecting elementary special education staffing now so that our youngest learners have every chance to thrive. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to invite Jessica Lee up.
All right, my name is Jessica Winder Lee. Good evening, board members and district leadership staff. My name is Jessica. I am the social worker at West Kearns Elementary School. I'm grateful for the opportunity to share some thoughts regarding the options for rebuilding West Kearns Elementary. It is critical to recognize that many of our students at West Kearns are trauma impacted and already face significant challenges outside of school. While having a new school built in the field is a little stressful, relocating students to a new environment would be worse. About 10% of our students are classified with a disability and need specialized support. Many of these students have behavioral health support on their IEPs and behavior intervention plans. That includes supervised breaks outside of the classroom and access to a sensory room. Moving to a school such as Ochre Hills does not have the space for students with disabilities, including our Essential Elements unit. We have an Essential Elements unit classroom where students with intellectual and physical disabilities need specialized bathrooms, including a changing table, in order for staff to provide basic hygiene needs, which is a human right. Additionally, the kindergartners and students in Essential Elements need a fenced playground where students cannot run away and put themselves in unsafe situations. For these students, stability, routine, and a sense of safety are essential for learning. Relocating them to an undersized, more crowded facility that is farther from their community introduces instability at every level. Longer commutes can heighten stress and anxiety, making it more difficult for students to regulate, engage, and succeed academically. Disrupting established support systems and safe places can have a disproportionate and lasting impact. Maintaining full staffing and adding relocatables does not solve these issues. I understand that the budget is an issue. However, it is important to remember that schools are for students and their overall success, including their academic, social, and emotional success. Overall, we are grateful we are getting a new school. Please consider these concerns as you go forward with your decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. Mrs. Lee. We're going to invite Michelle Jones to come up. We do have another person signed up, but it's for school fees. So Nate Woodward, if you're here, we're going to actually hold off your comment, if that's okay, until we have the school fees discussion as it pertains to that.
Good evening, President McDermott, Vice President Wynn, members of the board, and Superintendent Horsley. I feel like my comments tonight are unexpectedly well-timed because of the amazing recognition of the legislative superstars. So my name's Michelle Jones. I'm a 9th grade math teacher and the proud president of GEA. I'm here tonight to express my gratitude for the strong collaboration between GEA and Granite School District during the 2026 legislative session. Our weekly jam sessions, as named by the PTA, thanks Liz, kept us connected, strengthened our shared messaging, and created space to better understand one another's perspectives, especially when we didn't necessarily disagree. That spirit of collaboration reflects our shared commitment to students. As educators, district leaders, parents, we are united in our goal to provide a high-quality education for every single student in Granite School District. This session, that shared purpose guided our work on several key issues that I am excited to have success on. First, the failure of HB 170, the school board referendum amendments. This bill would have allowed petitions to challenge school board decisions. Its failure ensures that the school board can make timely, student-centered budget decisions without the uncertainty of potential reversals. Second, the failure of HB 241, charter school amendments. This bill, yeah, yay, you're not kidding. This bill would have given charter schools preferential access to district-owned property. Through our collective advocacy, the bill ultimately failed in the Senate. This outcome allows the district to work toward right-sized schools without fear of losing property to competing charter schools. In a time of increasing polarization, I am especially grateful to be part of a district and to lead a union that prioritize respectful, collaborative relationships. By working together, listening to one another, and leading with professionalism and dignity, we achieve stronger outcomes for our educators, for the district, and most importantly, for our students. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to our continued collaboration.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on to agenda item number 8, which is our consent items. We've had these items for the last few days and been able to look over them and ask questions. So if there are no further questions, I will entertain a motion on that.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion on that? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. We're going to move on to item number 9, which are action items. The first one that we have is our administrative appointments and transfers. This is number 9A. And again, we've had these also for a few days and been able to look over them and had any questions. If there's no further questions, I will entertain a motion about that.
I move to accept as an action item the approval of the administrative appointments and transfers.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve the administrative appointments and transfers as has been outlined. Is there any further discussion? Other than I might cry over one of them, but okay. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. We're going to have Tyler take it over. Dr. Howe, go ahead.
Thank you, Board President, and to members of the board. This is easily one of the greatest honors I get to be able to recognize our new appointments, and I'll also review our transfers so you're aware of all of those. I'd first like to ask Ili Moro Catalan to stand up for us. Give her a round of applause. We're going to embarrass her for just a minute, so you got to stand there. Ili's being appointed the assistant principal at Hunter and South Kearns Elementary School. Ili brings a rich and diverse background in education with international teaching experience in South Korea and Spain and a strong foundation as a Spanish dual immersion teacher at Monroe Elementary. Currently serving as an administrative intern at Benyon Junior High, she has demonstrated a strong transition to school leadership. Those who have worked directly with Ili in her administrative role emphasize that she combines an outstanding instructional skill set with a genuine ability to build strong relationships with faculty, making her an effective and trusted instructional leader. They also note her extensive experience supporting English language learners and students most impacted by systemic challenges. Colleagues further describe her as tough and unwavering in her commitment to the success of every student. These strengths position Ili well as she steps into her new role as the assistant principal at Hunter and South Kearns Elementary School. One more round of applause. Ili, now you get to embarrass other people. Can you introduce who you brought with you? Congratulations. Can we ask Becca Baggett to stand? Oh, we have one more recognition. Jake Brown needs to be embarrassed too. Becca Baggett, can we have you stand up and give her a round of applause? Becca brings 16 years of experience teaching in a variety of elementary schools within Granite School District, along with 10 years serving as a technology coach. She is currently an administrative intern at Lincoln Elementary School, where she has continued to grow her leadership capacity. Those who have worked directly with Becca in her administrative role share that she is highly skilled at helping others feel seen and heard, and that she approaches even difficult conversations with kindness and compassion. They also describe her as someone who is continually seeking opportunities to learn and grow. Colleagues further note that she has been exceptional this school year, smart, caring, and deeply passionate about education. Her love for students, positive attitude, and ability to build strong relationships with all stakeholders have made her a valued member of the school community. These strengths position Becca well as she steps into her new role as assistant principal at Beehive Elementary School. Congratulations. Becca, can you introduce who you brought with you?
Yes, this is my husband Mike and my son Scott.
Thanks for coming along and congratulations. Can I ask Francesca Hall to stand up and give her a round of applause? Francesca brings a strong and varied background in education, having served as a secondary math teacher in Memphis, Tennessee, and in Canyon School District. She later completed her administrative internship at Granite Park Junior High and currently serves as assistant principal at Hunter and Pleasant Green Elementary Schools. Those who have worked directly with Francesca in her administrative role describe her as an excellent administrator and express strong enthusiasm for her leadership. They highlight her commitment to prioritizing the whole child, noting that while she maintains a clear focus on academics, she equally values developing students as positive, well-rounded individuals. Colleagues also emphasize her dedication to personal growth and continuous development, as well as her ability to meet staff, parents, and students where they are and thoughtfully support them in improving. These strengths position Francesca well as she becomes the 13th principal of Vista Elementary School. Congratulations. Francesca, can you introduce who you have with you? Congratulations. We're thrilled for each of those appointments. By way of information, I'd love to just review some of the transfers that are also associated with the changes this year. In elementary school, Lindsay Adams, the principal of Moss Elementary, will be the new principal at Elk Run Elementary. Heidi Draper, the principal at Academy Park, will be the principal at Moss Elementary. Monica Thayer, the principal at Hillsdale Elementary, will be the principal at Walker Elementary. Anai Ulig, principal of Walker Elementary, will be the principal of West Valley Elementary. Jeff Walton, the principal at West Valley Elementary, will be the principal of Hillsdale Elementary. Lisa Wells, the principal at Elk Run Elementary, will become the principal at Silver Hills Elementary. And Julie Wilson, the principal of Vista Elementary, will become the principal at Academy Park Elementary. Our transfers amongst our assistant principals or deans of students, Rachel Bartholomew, who's currently the Dean of Students at Driggs and Oak Ridge, will become the Dean of Students at Driggs and Upland Terrace. Prima Truthodi, the assistant principal at Walker, will become the assistant principal at Pleasant Green and Silver Hills Elementary. Kimberly Hill, the assistant principal at Silver Hills and Upland Terrace, will become the assistant principal at Lake Ridge Elementary. Elisa Jennings, assistant principal at South Kearns and West Kearns, will become the assistant principal at Walker. Brent Nelson, currently assistant principal at Vista and Whittier, will become the assistant principal at Lincoln and Vista. Annie Orton, assistant principal at Jackling Elementary, will become the assistant principal at West Kearns and Whittier Elementary. Ricky Rindlisbacher, the assistant principal at Lake Ridge Elementary, will become the assistant principal at Jackling Elementary. Melanie Roybal, the assistant principal at Rolling Meadows, and Wilson Elementary will become the assistant principal at Armstrong and Rolling Meadows. Secondary, John Anderson, the principal of Olympus Junior High School, will become the principal of Benyon Junior High School. Jake Brown, the principal of Benyon Junior High School, will become the principal of Bonneville Junior High School. He's here with us today. Mike Douglas, the interim principal at Bonneville Junior High, will become the principal of Olympus Junior High School. And in high school, our assistant principals, Josh Adams, the assistant principal at Granger High, will become the assistant principal at Olympus High School. And Aaron Tanner, the assistant principal at Olympus High School, will become the assistant principal at Granger High School. That's a lot. Thank you, everybody.
Can I just... This is a really good crop of appointees this evening. We interviewed over 100 individuals and could have interviewed more. And we only had 3 retirements this year. So these are the best of the best of the best. So we're so very grateful to have them. You guys don't stick around for the rest of this meeting. It's called board meeting for a reason. Go celebrate and have a good night. Thanks for being part of our team.
I think it's thrilling. You guys are welcome to stay. All right, we're going to invite Dr. Howe back up, aren't we? And Steve Pershon for our student fees schedule. Second reading.
Absolutely. Well, board, we are back. This is our second reading of the school fees. As discussed before, these are the objectives, but just as a reminder of this process that we've gone through, we have a very robust fee committee that meets on a monthly basis, and they're also soliciting input from our practitioners in the schools and asking how those things are balancing out as far as what the current fees are. We're also utilizing input from curriculum specialists right here in the district to be able to vet those and to evaluate them, but we'd like to be able to recap those from our first reading and be able to answer any follow-up questions. As we mentioned on the first time we read this, last year's changes, there were more significant legislative changes with fees and fee schedules last time, but this one is an important one to highlight that due to the changes from last year, the current year we have a general fee no longer being charged, and that equates to $65 for each high school and $40 for each junior high school. Class fees cannot be charged for English, health, math, social studies, and science. So the district this year has deployed a fee replacement allocation and provided schools for the following: $55 for each junior high and $90 for the high schools.
From the recent legislative session, House Bill 121 was not adopted, so that failed. So that one didn't actually even get off committee. So that one would have changed it, so they would have allowed for science fees, but again, that one did not pass.
Down.
Yeah. There you go. Okay. One bill that did change in regard to fees is House Bill 142 by Representative Doug Welton's school fee waiver amendment. It passed. Amendment provisions related to school fee waivers and defines terms. It limits the number of fee waivers a student may receive, and it requires the local LEA, so Granite will have to establish a cap on fee waivers. What this basically does, it allows a student to request a fee waiver for a second trip by meeting with the principal or a designee and developing an action plan that includes school-related contributions, so they could come up with a contract to provide custodial work, service, tutoring, other type of things they could do in the community as well, and it makes some technical and conforming changes. So that'll be something that we'll have to tackle as an LEA as well. That's going to look for the district.
These are all linked in your agenda, but those are the actual updated maximum school fees for each of our levels. As we discussed last time, we'll just hit some highlights. We'll hit anything that was a change from previously. As we discussed last time, the school club dues have changed. Also, our driver's education, due to the fact that prices have increased and the program right now is losing money and not sustainable. The recommendation to increase that from $195 to $250.
And for school-sponsored admission fees, we're adding an athletic sports passes. Other school districts around us have adopted this, and also without the basic fee. We used to use the basic fee as kind of that admission for their games. We're creating two different types of passes: an all-athletic sports pass, which allow entry for athletic events for the entire school year. That'd be a $40 pass. And for individual sports, they could go to typically either a football or basketball season would be $20 for the season. And then dances with the increased costs for decorations, vendors, DJs, administration, security, raising that from $15 to $20 per student. Changes to career and technical education. Fire science, we're changing that from 35 to 40, and also we're adding a new class, wildlife firefighter, so making those fees the same amount of money, so $40 for each of those. Food and nutrition, raising that from $20 to $30, just with the increased cost of food for the students to be able to do the food labs. Hospitality and tourism is a new class that some of our high schools are offering, so offering a $25 fee for that class where they can do different activities there. Medical interpreting, that's mainly a fee for the cost of items needed for that class. Sports and outdoor design, this class is an interesting name. This is more of a sewing class. It's more of a sports marketing and doing athletic gear for that. So that's a sewing class, raising that for the fee to from 35 to 40. And again, we mentioned the wildlife fire. And then two changes to PE, lifetime sports and bowling, changing that from 80 to 100, and lifetime activities recreation from 80 to 100, also just the increased cost for those activities for them to participate in.
To be clear, you said bowling, not bullying.
Yes.
We don't charge
yes,
a fee
we
for
don't.
that.
We try to avoid that. Proposed junior high fees, there's no changes for the first or second reading there, so no changes to the junior high fee schedule for this year. For elementary, no changes to the fee schedule itself, just for verbiage, and that verbiage is highlighted in green here. All fees for elementary school activities are for those that occur either before or after the regular school day. We cannot charge a fee inside the school day. And then for our non-waivable fees, changing one thing on that one, which is just adding a line for certification and licenses. It's not needed for the grade in the classes. It's an extra item that the kids could actually have the opportunity to earn. So if they're in a foods class, they could get their food handler's permit. A pharmacy tech, they get the certification, EMT. Lots of different opportunities for kids to actually earn that, which they can use for jobs or for the future.
This is a significant part of the legislation. Beginning this upcoming school year, an LEA must offer at least one pathway for the 27 credits that fulfills graduation requirements and does not require payment of waiver of any fees. As we mentioned in our first reading, Granite School District already fulfills this requirement in conjunction with our online program, meaning that there's certain classes that if fulfilled online will allow a path forward to get all the way to the 27 credits without paying any fees. I'm doing a little extra homework, and really kudos to Steve on this, because he's been able to analyze and talk with counselors and registrars at each of our high schools. Each of our high schools also have an at-school path to get to the 27 credits. Now, those paths may vary a little bit by which school is charging for which different course, but every one of the 8 high schools would have a path forward without the online program to also get to the 27 credits. So we were pleased with that, and thanks to Steve for doing so much legwork on that. To our questions, one question that came up last time, I thought I'd start there and then of course open it up to any other questions, is the request to investigate and explore how communication is on the front end of course selection. We have taken that and had a very robust conversation with our high school principal guiding coalition and discussed the communication mechanisms. There is variation from high school to high school on what the cards look like, whether they're physical cards or digital cards. But everyone, and no matter what the system is on board to make sure that the estimated fee, and I emphasize that because it's a little bit backwards on the order of these things, is listed on the course selection communication piece that the student and the family would have. I say it's a little bit backwards because obviously the course selection is taking place in January and February, and here we are finalizing fees in the fee schedule in the end of March and the beginning of April. So it's going to have to be the best estimate they can to have that up front to say this is what we anticipate it being, and we want to make it clear for our patrons that it's an estimate. Additionally, I know Rick Anthony, with the feedback from our last meeting, is working with his folks and exploring also having that built into the Focus system. Obviously, that's an increased price and a special work order for Focus, but he thinks it's feasible, and I would expect more information from his folks in the upcoming weeks and months on what that could look like and what the price would go with it. So that was a significant question we had asked last time, and I want to report back on what we found out for each of those. Can I open it up in general for any new questions for our second reading?
Any questions? I do have.
We want to be Amazon.
I have some questions. So my question, and I don't know if this might be a policy issue, but with those estimates, I would like to know that those are not going to be a significant difference between what a parent sees on a fee card or on a registration card and what it ends up to be. Do we need to place some parameters, maybe through policy or procedurally, that please make your best estimate, but it cannot exceed $50 from what your estimate is? Or tell me, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. And I would anticipate, we don't want that either. We don't want the awkward conversation if we printed something and the family comes back and says, hey, you said this and now it's that. Mm-hmm. So I'm positive there's going to be some consensus from all of our high school administrators and counselors to get as close as possible. Most often I'm anticipating it's going to be what it was previously. I mean, even going through this change of the fee salary, or the fee schedule, I should say, was looking through anywhere there are changes. So I think that the areas that will be the most problematic is if we can see significant changes, but I would anticipate most are going to be going with what it was last year unless there's been something on those spend plans that indicate we need to change that. And that would be included in the estimate.
The nice part about this too is the board approves the maximum fee schedule, so we already have a maximum. So we just have to work with them on best practice of keeping that close to that estimate.
Sure, I just don't want parents to sign up for something and think, okay, I can do a $50 fee and then it ends up being a $200 fee, because that's a big difference. So,
And to Steve's point, I think the maximum would catch that by itself. But in general, I don't think there's anyone involved in this that would want that either, because that's a hard conversation to have to defend.
yeah.
Sorry, that hit my drink. That was loud. Yeah, on that cap, I would hope that, is it simply a communication? So let's say, okay, the fee for the class is estimated to be 50, but the cap cannot exceed 100. I mean, couldn't that just be communicated all in one?
Definitely it could, and maybe a way to do that is the cap is actually set for the whole district on that fee schedule. I could see it having the link right there with it saying, and here is the maximum fee schedule. And hopefully that not for both the parents, but also the administrators and the counselors, helps everyone be on the same page. If that is the cap, it can't go beyond that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think you can maybe, I don't know that we need this in policy, but I think maybe communication-wise, maybe there can be a lot of groundwork laid that it's, hey, this is the estimated cost for this class, but here is where you can find the absolute max. It will not and cannot exceed X amount.
I like that.
And I appreciate at least some parameters around there, just because I don't want any gotchas for parents. I want them to have that up front and know. And I just think, because I mean, there's some of our schools that charge the maximum fee, and then there's some schools that try to keep it as minimum as possible. So sure, they could charge, $1,700 for an activity, but they're trying to charge $200. But I don't want that to be a gotcha where they sign up thinking, okay, it's going to be $200, maybe $250, and then it's all of a sudden $1,000. That's a big difference. So
absolutely agree. That's very important.
I appreciate, okay, estimated cost will be, our best guess is, $200. The cap for the activity, the district cap would be, if that can be communicated on the card, that would be not to exceed.
I think that's very doable, and we'll take that back.
Okay, thank you.
One of the great things about our getting the fee to pass now is the teachers have to go in and create a spend plan too. So they can't just say the fee is $50. They have to go down and then break it down saying X dollars is for these supplies, X dollars is for staffing or some other activities. So there's a breakdown of what those fees actually go to. You can't just say we're charging $50 and it's for whatever we want to use. It has to be defined on what they're using those fees for.
Yeah, and like I say, I appreciate that, and I think it will help that they're a little bit more forward-facing in the future as we get to those spend plans, because I feel like sometimes teachers just are like, okay, I can charge $250. All right, well, I'm going to spend this on this. That no, instead we're like very thoughtful about that. Okay, I could use new folders, or I could use new blah, 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 whatever it is, and that it's very delineated and purposeful in the way that we do charge a fee, because it can be, especially some of our communities, it can be a big hardship on parents who don't qualify for a fee waiver, but still want to have their kids have an opportunity. So I'm just going to put that out there. And I do want to say I appreciate you guys looking into fees included in focus. And I can't remember if I said this last time, so forgive me. I would like to see that happen. I would really ideally love to see it happen when we're doing registration. Did I say that last time?
You did.
Okay. I'm just going to reiterate that then.
It's a good one to reiterate.
When we're registering our kids, I don't want to have to then go back and have to re-add that and pay another fee, and then, oh, did I buy a yearbook? I don't remember. I would really love to just, and maybe some people like it because then they don't have to pay it all at the same time, and they can spread it out over a couple months, but I forget, and so it would be nice to have that up front. Anyway.
The focus, I'm very encouraged by what Rick's reporting to me. I'm not as knowledgeable about it, but from what you've requested, what I understand from my conversation with him, that is distinctly possible, and that's what he's investigating.
Okay, that would be great if we could find out if that is possible. So, okay, we have, is Nate Woodward here? Nate? Okay, I guess Nate is not here. As this is a second reading, it is also a public hearing, though. If there's anybody who would like to talk about the fees, you're welcome to come up and speak right now. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and move on. Okay. So we'll go ahead and close that part. If there are no further questions, I will entertain a motion. This is a second reading and final reading.
I move to approve the 2027 student fee schedule as a final reading.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the 2026-2027 student fee schedule as a final reading, a second and final reading. Any further discussion on this?
Yes, I have a quick comment. I'll just reiterate my comments from a month ago from our prior meeting about my displeasure for this process. In general, I won't repeat them and just reference them in the record back to the minutes from the last meeting and or the recording. Thanks.
We'll recognize that and also concur that we don't like charging fees, but recognize that if we don't, then we'd have to raise property taxes by a significant amount to cover that.
Sure, but my comments were a little different than that a month ago, so thanks, though, for that.
I'm saying my comments on that.
That's fair.
All right, no further comment? All those
I have one.
Sorry,
just one quick comment. I just want to reiterate that I think, Nicole, you were speaking of this either, just as teachers do these spend plans to keep these students in mind. And so it's not how much can I charge, it's how much do I need to charge for the operation of whatever club or sport or team you're doing. Because where I hear the absolute most about the displeasure of fees are what I call families on the bubble, right? They make just enough to not qualify for the fee waiver, but definitely not enough to cover hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And so I hear that a lot in my community. It's those families that I want to protect by having these caps and hopefully having leaders of the teachers and leaders of these clubs that they are very sensitive when they're filling out those spending plans to keep those families in mind. Stacy, if you could just reference that in the record, that'd be great. Thank you.
Any other comment? All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
This is why the kids are going to start dropping. Just know. I'm taking it back to the community.
All right, we have, up next, we have population analysis, and we'll invite Steve up.
As Steve is making his way forward, I want to clarify something just really quick. This is listed as an action item, and that's just in the spring. Historically, this item has been an action item, but you probably noticed there isn't actually in the presentation no recommendation. And so we just, given the current state of PAC studies, wanted to be flexible with the board in terms of what they hope to accomplish. But we do not, and as you will see in the presentation, have any formal recommendations, just traditionally where that's been found on the agenda. So I apologize if there was any confusion.
Thank you, Superintendent. Actually, I think that last comment was just to make me feel more comfortable returning tonight. So. I'll go as quickly as possible. It has been a few months, I think about 4 months since I've seen you all. So it is good to see everyone again, all in the same place at the same time. Contrary to rumors out there, I've not been under house arrest or banned from any Granite District public meetings. We have been busy in our department the last several months playing catch up a bit, and we still have a lot of that to go. Tonight, I'll briefly recap, as painful as that might be for just a moment. I want to recap and summarize, talk about consultant cost estimates, enrollment trends, and even possible next steps. So when, again, I won't rehearse every detail, but I did, because I'm a bit of a glutton for punishment sometimes, I did go back today and watch part of the board meeting from last November to refresh my memory on a few things. And the one motion, of course, that was made then was that the Area 5 study was suspended indefinitely. But I also want to make mention of, just to remind everyone and remind the board members, there were several, if not most people on the board had said also that, hey, let me remind you, indefinitely does not mean forever. It means till further notice, until it's brought up or until the board decides to revisit. And so that was, in essence, at the end of the board meeting. I won't rehearse all of the reasons and rationale for that decision. Anyone can go back and watch that board meeting if you like. But that is where we left off in November. Further, the board asked in that same meeting near the end that the ALC and DLI issue that was so prevalent be studied by the curriculum department. And that is, I'll tell you, ongoing. That's a current study by it's not the PAC necessarily, but the Curriculum and Instruction Department has had several meetings, and I'd estimate they're probably halfway through at those meetings trying to collect data and feedback to decide what to do with AOC and DLI. I don't think just in that area, but I think throughout the district. And that the PAC would study the enrollment patterns from past studies. For instance, the comment was made, hey Steve, where did these students go after studies? You know, if a building was if the school was closed or a boundary was changed, do we know for sure did all of the students end up where intended over time? And if we lost students, are we able to get them back? Or what do we need to do to get them back? And so that portion, in fact, will begin at some point next month. We hope later in the summer, early fall, to have that data complete. So a report on that information as soon as we can, but I anticipate August to September on that part of the board request.
But to be clear, that portion has not been started yet. The enrollment study. I understand ALC and DLI have been studied, but as of right now, there's been nothing done on that third bullet point.
Correct.
Okay.
I have anecdotal stuff I know from histories and things like that, but nothing officially, no.
And Steve, I wanted to clarify on the ALC and DLI work that's already been done. Has that been mostly done in Area 5, or has there been effort across the district?
I'll speak to that. The intent was because the Morningside community is part of the PAC study process last year, is actually the ones who requested that original study, and then the board reiterated a desire to look at that wholesale. So we did start with focus groups, and I think those are actually still ongoing. I don't think they've completed yet, but the intent is to broaden that out to other programs across the district as well.
Yeah, I knew that started at Morningside, and I just wanted to be sure that the intention was clear that that needed to be a district-wide discussion, not just an Area 5 discussion.
Yeah.
So thank you. It sounds like we're on the same page.
I would like to take the opportunity to also reiterate that that is not associated with any future PAC studies. That is a standalone request from the community and the Board of Education, and we'll provide that information as appropriate down the road.
And the reason that it's in this presentation is because the need for that came up and it became apparent during the PAC study.
Correct.
And we also at that time said, but this actually isn't a PAC study issue, but it did arise during that time, and that's why it's in the presentation.
And thank you for the clarification, but that's exactly right. So, okay, shifting gears. You'll notice I'm shifting gears a couple of times. All of these things are related, and we'll bring them all together near the end of this presentation. But related to the indefinite suspension of the study, and I was asked to also begin gathering info on cost estimates for a boundary closure study consulting. That was also part of the conversation in that last board meeting in November. Was a consideration or an approach, should we consider, we, the district, not me, but the board and the district overall, to hire a consultant to run boundary and or closure studies. So as part of that initial process, I've been reaching out to consulting firms. And so I want to be very clear about what this information is and is not. This was a verbal request for information. I went to what I consider some of the leading consultants in the country in K-12 demographics. And again, this is generalized information. It's not a formal written request, not an RFP or anything like that. It was just that. Now, the advantage of doing it this way is these consultants can be pretty honest and sometimes brutally honest in a verbal conversation over a phone or video conferences and sometimes even email. But when they know this is not an official request. So that part was very good and very informative. You'll see that the price ranges that I'll show you in just a moment and the services that are offered by these consulting companies. And again, no consultant is identified by name on purpose, again. That allows them to speak more freely and openly, and I wouldn't do that unless this was an official written request. And so the parameters that I started with, and I used the same parameters and the same, kind of like an interview for an employee. If you're interviewing a bunch of people, you want to use the same questions and parameters every time. I did this with the folks that I talked to. We were looking for three things. Do you do enrollment forecasting, community engagement, and building assessments? This does not mean that we have to do those things, that we absolutely need to do those things, but we were trying to understand what their capabilities were and what their experience is and has been. So this simple comparison overview gives us some idea of where we could start. And I'll stress again, these are ranges. You'll see on the left side, the first column is the consultant, again, A, B, C, D, E, not names. The next one is first-time enrollment forecasting. And I want to emphasize first time here. Most companies, just like we did with MGT that did our last consulting for us and gave us enrollment forecasting, the first time is more expensive because that's where they get the most data. Oftentimes they will and they prefer to come back and do updates annually. So, but this is a first time enrollment forecast average. Again, it's an estimate. It's not a written quote. Those can be $80,000 to $100,000. You'll find some less, some more, but on average, at least with these, this seems to be fairly industry standard. And also emphasize for a district our size. If you talk to other districts and they say, well, geez, we didn't pay nearly that much. How large is their district and what were the parameters? There are parameters even for enrollment forecasting also. Community engagement. This largely depends on the size and scope of the community engagement. And for instance, is this in this case, would this just be an Area 5 study or another one area study? Would it be a district-wide study? Would it last for 6 months? Would it last for 1 year? Could it last for 2 years? How many meetings would Granite School District want this consulting company to hold? Are they public meetings? Are they video conference? There are all sorts of ways to do the community engagement. There's some really good and effective companies out there and consultants that do a nice job of this, but it really varies. And so when I say 300 to 350 to 500,000, could it be a lot lower than that? It could be. But again, if you're talking a district-wide for a district our size and one that's as detailed as we've done in the past, it's going to be significantly more than that. Finally, building assessments. Again, this is not necessarily required for any study. I will say, this is just my opinion for a second, and my experience is we're about 10 years from our last building assessment. If we're looking at one area, perhaps a building assessment, a redo is not needed. For a district-wide study, it would perhaps be needed, but this one is a little more optional than some of the others. You can see there the two at the bottom that contract that out. It's not too uncommon. They don't have the personnel themselves. They hire, which would probably be a local engineering company like we did 10 years ago to run a building assessment. And again, building assessments kind of run the gamut also between just capacity and educational functionality to the building facility, the property, you name it. There's a wide range of building assessments also. So you can see there are some basic estimates. They were great conversations and very informative, but it's not inexpensive.
I just had a question about building assessments. I guess I was looking at it differently because if we're asking for a population analysis and a kind of a consultant to come in and give us some recommendations, does this also include kind of the recognizing where the hot spots are, where our kids are concentrated, and maybe giving us a recommendation, not necessarily the building, the FCI, but the location, the central, the best location, which schools. Does that make sense?
It does. And again, each of these is a little different, but when I visited with some of my counterparts from around the country, what I've found is most districts do studies based on what they call their master plan. And their master plan really is focused on the building and what happens from there. They'll consider, like you're talking about, the heat map and where students are coming from. But they just take which building is next on the rebuild or remodel. That's their area. And they build boundaries around that. And I've explained that we're more nuanced and have been much more nuanced than that. And we look at other things other than just the building and many factors. Our FCI that we talk about a lot is what we focused on. But again, they can do different parameters altogether.
Can I speak to that a little bit? As well as I look at this chart, we've already invested a tremendous amount of money in the enrollment forecasting. MGT has done that data forecasting for us the last few cycles. Their data has been pretty spot on, and in fact, I would say is even conservative this go around. We're actually seeing a sharper decline than even they anticipated. We'll discuss that a little bit further. So I'm looking at these costs as I discussed this with Steve. I'm a little bit reluctant to pay somebody to go out and do the exact same thing that we already had done. And it would probably be the same company to do it because we would bid it out. And they've won the bid previously. So that might be onerous and repetitive. The building assessments I also have concerns about. Originally back in 2017 when we did the FCIs on our schools and the seismic standard ratings, that cost upwards of $250,000 to do that wholesale across the board. Another go around would be probably closer to $750,000. My reluctance there is those scores haven't changed. We're not seeing dramatic improvements made to our buildings that would alter those scores or suddenly change, with the exception of like Westlake, which is a brand new building, right? So I'm just reluctant to spend additional funds unless it was perhaps on a comparison between two facilities in a neighboring area. Where we could get a deeper analysis and the cost would be a little bit cheaper, if that makes sense, if we were looking at a consolidation, perhaps. And so it's that center part, managing the data, working through community engagement, building consensus, gaining feedback, I think is where we would get the biggest bang for our buck. And I'll speak to that a little bit more later on in the presentation.
Okay. Any questions about these estimates before I pivot to the next part?
I think the thing that I really wanted an independent consultant was for a recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
And
Of
none of these services seem to point to recommendation. So can you speak to that?
I could have been more clear about that, but that is part of their community. That would be considered, in my opinion, part of their community engagement and or enrollment forecasting. They certainly would do that. And again, understanding that it is just that, a recommendation, because the board always has to make that tough call. But that is what these consultants specialize in. They come in from out of town and give their recommendations, and then here you go.
It seems to me that if I wanted someone to give me a recommendation, I would need them to look at the enrollment, do some community engagement, look at the building assessment, and then from there they could come up with a plan, right? It sounds like what you guys are talking about is that 3 different people would be doing those things possibly, because we'd send out an RFP for enrollment forecasting and one for community engagement. Can you fix the holes in my understanding here?
I will say, Superintendent and I talked about this a little bit because it came up in a previous meeting. My experience with consultants is they would be hesitant to do community engagement on something data that's not theirs. They would likely, can't promise, but likely insist on the enrollment forecasting being their data before they will go out and discuss it and defend it or get feedback on it. So it's most likely, not impossible, but most likely that those would be the same too.
And we did pull I was trying to speak to that in my comment just a minute ago, so I apologize I was not more clear. It's a little frustrating that as we did discuss this last fall about the potential option of hiring a consultant, that they were going to want to take that overall approach. They might contract out portions of that, but some of the data might be redundant or data we've already collected. So unless we can find a vendor who's willing to just come in and provide recommendations based on the MGT data we've already paid for and using the FCI scores and the seismic safety ratings that we've already produced, which have not changed, that's where the challenge falls.
One of the things about that, though, is that while we're saying, well, we got this data, remember that the data was really questioned by our public. And so while maybe we have confidence in the data, whether we do or don't, our public didn't, so maybe there is some benefit to going out and getting a second opinion on that data anyway, especially if it's going to be a requirement if we want them to be involved at all. I would say maybe it isn't a waste of money,
Could be.
Because it's done twice now, you know.
Absolutely. I think you're right. There was a perception challenge, although every patron that I talked to that read the 80-page report seemed to have confidence in what the information was sharing. I think the perception challenge was in how we were interpreting the data and other data sets, such as one facility was in better condition than the other, for instance. We didn't get a lot of pushback. We did get some pushback. I don't want to deny that, but with respect to the MGT data in specific, because I think when people did read those reports and recognized how much in-depth research went into that.
I especially agree that I didn't feel like people were questioning the MGP, or what is it called?
MGT.
Yeah, that data.
To Julie's point, though, am I understanding this right? So let's say we want a company to go out for enrollment forecasting and community engagement, but can we hand them our FCI scores and save money on that? On that arm, would they trust that data enough? Because I'm looking at the cost of that, and that by far is it. I mean, it would keep our costs closer to $500,000-ish.
Sure.
Than pushing it over the $1 million. But I don't know if would they, in your experience, would they be willing to accept those scores?
I believe so. That would be the parameters we would set as a district and when we send out the RFP is, hey, we already have our FCI scores we're comfortable with. That you'll use, and then they can say, hey, your own district's FCI score is this, and then community feedback from there.
I was going to say, I think that data was less questioned than any of the other data. And while you're right, people who did read that 80-page report probably didn't question it, how many people read the 80-page report. So that would
we had a few.
Yes, we did, but we needed more.
Right.
So, but to Julie's point too, I agree, Karen. I think this could, I mean, even if we get a second, because that's the lower one, that's the lower cost on this, the first time enrollment forecasting. If we have that done again and it shows the exact same thing, then we say we've got two.
And then we can have confidence in the numbers too.
Yeah, we have confidence in it, and when they question that, look, we've got two companies separately that have said this is our enrollment forecast, and
but I want to emphasize though that the goal is quite honestly not to make everybody feel good about it, because there are going to be people who don't. There are going to be people who are going to not feel good about it no matter what. The goal is to get to the best outcome for students, and we didn't think we had that last fall. And so what the goal is would we be paying for a process that could get us to the best outcome? That's really what we need to be making sure that we're asking. Because yes, there was a lot of community, consternation and discussion, which we want to fix this time and do better if we were to go back out to any community, right? but the goal is getting the better outcome. That's the reason to hire, right?
Yeah. I mean, at the same time, though, I want the recommendation to include not just, because we need to take the other things into consideration as well. Where have the kids gone from the schools that we
100%.
have closed? Where is the best place for
100%
this
on board
school
with
to
that.
be located so that we have, we don't lose kids, those are all things that we have to discuss, not just have an analytical, you need to close 3 schools, these are the 3 lowest schools, those are the 3. We can't have that. We have to have a little bit more of a strategic plan with that, to me. And I want to know that the consultants would do that.
That's what I was going to say too.
We need to make sure that they're understanding our strategy and that the things that we're up against. Does that make sense?
Right.
Do you
It
feel
does.
like they would?
I believe so. Again, it doesn't exist fully until you see it in writing, of course, but I believe so. And in fact, they say all the time, you tell us what you want. What are your parameters? What are your expectations? What is the scope? And they would tell us at that point before they begin whether they could fulfill that obligation or not.
Okay. Any other questions, or should we move on? You good? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, the next slide, you've seen something similar. This is just simply another bar chart with our enrollment trend. This one is a little different in that it does go again for another 5 years. It shows a similar trend line that you've seen before, unfortunately. 2025, October 2025 is that last blue column, if you will, or bar. That was at it was 52,745, if you can't see that small writing there. The first yellow line next to that is next year's projection, and I'll show you more in detail what that looks like in just a moment. But finally, all the way at the end is 2030 is our, I say our, Granite School Districts, the states, MGTs, everything, every piece of data we have. This is the projection based on all of those that I'll show you in just a minute. But that is a decrease over the next 5 years of about 8,000 students. That's approximately 1,600 a year. This is one time, I hope I'm wrong, and I hope we are being too conservative. I would be happy to be wrong, but I'm not sure we are. We did not yet take this and extrapolate this out further to say 2035, but if you look at simply birth rates, the current kindergarten, knowing what we know and carry that out over the next full generation of K-12 students, this trend does tend to continue that way. Let me show you what I mean. Let's look at a few other. So again, these are next year's projections. I keep emphasizing that word. I wish we had the crystal ball and we knew for sure. But these are the current projections for each elementary school. All that red, of course, indicates projected decrease at each of those schools. I will say there are about 4 or 5 schools with some minor changes that are not reflected here. Since we published these, we have a process where a principal in a school can appeal this. They provide data. We made some very minor changes, but really doesn't change what we're talking about here in the overall percentage. But there are 4 elementary schools that could potentially have a slight increase. That leaves about 50 with a decrease. If you look at that for secondary schools, junior high is on the left, high schools on the right. Again, 2 junior highs with a tiny projected increase. The rest are decreasing. Same with the high schools. This is not too surprising. As when we began this process 7 or 8 years ago, we could see what was happening with birth rates, and now that is catching up or is being reflected in the secondary numbers. And finally, if you're looking at overall numbers per grade throughout the district totals, the projection of just over 2,000 fewer students next year, that's a 4.1% projected decrease. This is more in line with what the state has said Granite District would be decreasing by this next year. MGT has it a little less than that. Theirs is 3 something, but but the state and our current projection is right at 4%, which is a big number.
Can you go back up to the elementary slide to reiterate one of the points you already made? If you look at that kindergarten class of 3,200 students, the total of incoming projected, and carry that through the full 13 years, it's 41,000 kids if we retained every single one of those kindergartners, which we know we don't. And so this is not great news, but it's not, I think we need to change our perspective a little bit on this, because it's not unexpected either. Communities do not retain large amounts of students over a period of time. Neighborhoods mature. Young families cannot afford to move into the average home price in Granite School District, which is $565,000. So it stands to reason that we're trying to help our administrators as they develop their staffing plans to embrace these figures. And then if it comes in a little bit higher, great, but don't reserve those funds to try to preserve FTE that isn't going to be there in a few years. And so we do need our community to understand this is not, nobody's at fault here. There's nobody to point blame at. This is just a significant reduction in the birth rate, and these rates are going down at a higher rate than we even anticipated even just 2 years ago. We have gone off a enrollment cliff, as it were. We were holding steady, and now we're in the 4% range, and we expect that to continue to increase. So let me put that into numbers. In the past, we have talked about school closures and consolidations as being a way to enhance instruction and improve outcomes for kids. We have said very specifically that it's not a huge cost savings. Looking at these numbers now, it is a $10 million cost savings. When you talk about some of these schools, and you can see on the next couple of slides here, how many schools have less than 300 kids, have less than 250 kids, and we're talking about a full-time administrator, full-time custodian and secretary, and roughly $600,000 to $1 million worth of utility operational costs annually. If we close 10 schools, that's $10 million. And we could easily do that and still have sufficient square footage to meet our students' needs. So again, those buildings aren't exactly where we want them every moment in every study, but this is now a fiscal challenge. It's not just about improving outcomes for kids. This is about, is this the best use of resources for our tax-paying public, and can we get better outcomes for a better price?
This is that slide you were referring to, Superintendent. Again, you can see the different colors reflecting different enrollment ranges. We have 5 schools projected. These are based on projections for next fall. 5 schools from 200 to 250, 8 in that 250 to 300 range. That's 25% of our schools right there. At the top, 17%, 500 to 600 plus is where we prefer, I would like to have most of our schools. Everything else is kind of in that middle. And again, this is based on next year's projection, not 2030. This is the same information reflected by individual school. Just looking at the overall enrollment. Let me review quickly the statewide trend. Many of you have seen this slide or a similar slide. You might think it's the same slide. I've used something similar in the last couple of years. In 2022, the Kim C. Gardner Policy Institute up at the U did I think, a pretty significant demographic study of the state. And this is something that I've used. But you'll notice if you look at the old slide, the study was updated this past fall. I think it was November, just a few months ago. And there were some slight changes. And unfortunately, not to everyone's liking. It's simply, when I called and talked to Mallory Bateman, she's the director of the Institute, and I've called and talked to her a few times to try to get her interpretation or their interpretation to make sure I'm reading these things correctly. She basically said that they had talked to other experts, demographic experts around the country, and that was part of the reason they consumed a slower decline in total fertility rate statewide over the next 40 years than they originally said in 2022. And then you'll notice in this next slide. But if you look at this, it can be a little deceiving because you look at that and think, oh, great, look at us. In around 2035, we're going to zoom back up and we're going to be huge and we'll need all these new buildings and everything. But that's not really what that's reflecting. Statewide trend. Even that is not as rosy as that graph may make it look, but this is a statewide trend. So consider this. This is
Could you
the
go
Salt
back
Lake.
to that? Sorry, Steve.
You bet.
To emphasize your point, the peak would be 2 to 3%.
Yes.
Of an increase statewide.
Yes.
So now you're going to show us what that looks like for Salt Lake County.
The top red line is the state. The bottom line is Salt Lake County, which reflects generally flat with a slight decrease over the next 10 years, 10 to 15 years. Now, another very, very important fact here, that this is the total projected 5 to 17-year-old population. It doesn't mean every one of those students show up in our schools. There are all those other factors. How many more, if any, charters and private schools are out there that may open? What does the real estate market do? What's our overall capture rate of these 5 to 17-year-olds? That alone could be a game changer and totally make this look completely different. But this is, quite frankly, probably closer to best case scenario because this is based on birth rate. None of these other factors that can have a huge, huge impact on us, whether that's state or federal policies, real estate, the economy, educational trends. There are many, many factors that can influence this chart. This is a good starting point.
Can I ask, I know we're looking at state, but as you sit in this position, have you talked to colleagues even in other states? Are other states seeing this dramatic of a
Yes.
change?
I mean, not every state's the same, right? And some parts of the country grow more than others. But I belong to a group that myself and a colleague or a person from Reno, Washoe County, we began a couple of years ago. We call it Districts of a Feather. But that's the idea. We created this group to talk to people around the country to see, is it just us? Sometimes when you work almost in a silo, in my position, you wonder, is it just us? Is it just our district, just our state? What's happening? And it's not. It's not. And when I go to these, I go to this conference every summer, school planning conference. I'll go again this in June, and we get a chance to talk to the folks around the country. And it's pretty similar. Pretty similar. Again, they're whether you're in a city, an urban area, a rural area, a high growth area or not, even the so-called high growth areas, they're impacted by birth rate decline. And so generally speaking, this is everywhere.
Can I speak to that too?
Yes.
When I went to Washington, D.C. in January for Utah School Boards Association, and we got together as school board members from across the nation to just say, what are your pain points? One of the pain points was low enrollment and school closures. And that was East, Midwest, West, everywhere. Mm-hmm. And I also just wanted to say that just today, I have a group chat with a bunch of board members from other districts, and somebody put on the chat, who's looking at closing schools around here? And everybody rose their hand. I mean, everybody, and a few people are closing schools tonight. I was surprised that they were saying they were closing schools tonight. And then the other thing I just want to point out is that in my neighborhood, a private school closed recently. And I also know of 2 charter schools in our district that have closed.
This is not just a public school area.
Yeah. Us, right? We're all feeling it. And I guess that's all I really want to say.
I guess the reason why I ask is because I think there's so many people that would contribute this to, well, they're going to a charter, they're going to homeschool, they're going to, but so if this is everywhere, and if you're hearing, and I'm glad to hear that, not that I'm glad that anybody closes, but I'm glad to hear that it is affecting, it is a nationwide thing, and I think that that's significant that people need to hear, so anyway.
It is. My last meeting, it was similar in, I remember, Des Moines, Chicago area, Austin, Texas, and there was one other western city. but we're all talking the same issues, so.
I actually, interesting that at Alpine School District, somebody from there, and I don't know, because now they're 3, so I don't know how that all plays into this, but they were talking about how they closed a school that had 117 kids in it, but now they're over on their other side of their district. They got to build 17 in the next 10 years because of the growth. So, I mean, I think districts are also dealing with kind of both issues at the same time.
Along the Wasatch Front, generally on the east bench, it's contracting. West side of the valley, west side of the Wasatch Front is the growth area. So in that area, you're right. You're still going to see Canyons District, us, Davis, Alpine, or whatever district it is down there. The further east you go, the more mature, if you will, those populations are. The growth is largely on the east side. So patrons get confused. You talk about as a district, we need to close 1 or 2 schools over here, and we're opening 10 over there. That feels like a disconnect to a lot of people, and it's just simply shifting populations. Both things can be true at the same time.
Can I also point out, oh, go ahead, Julie.
I was just going to ask questions about the population.
Oh, and I was just going to point out that when you look at those projections of the schools in red, they're not just in one area of our district. There's one in mine. And so I think that's something
They're all across.
That's more interesting this time than before, because I think sometimes we thought, oh, it's only on our really east side of our district, and that's not true. So I know Karen has 2 schools on here too. So.
For our district, unfortunately, the boundaries of our district from approximately 21st South to 62 South is one of the oldest parts of the valley in the state.
So
that's where we are.
Pointing that out.
I just had a question. So when we look at these projections of the secondary, I kind of was always hearing the narrative that part of the problem in elementary is that we have these high housing costs, and that by the time families have secondary, they can often afford to move in, and so we feel it less there. Can you just speak to how that philosophy is interjected into these numbers? Is it or is it not? I think, because I also heard Ben say, if you take every kindergartner and follow them through to high school, it's this number. So how are we looking at that?
If I understand you correctly, let me just say that for decades, we could look at the high density, so-called high density housing, typically apartments and townhomes, and say, yes, we know that those are largely young marrieds or early elementary age. By the time they get to mid-elementary at the latest, they're in single-family homes. So we could take an area, count out the single-family homes versus the high density, know what our student yield is from those types of homes to make a good, accurate forecast. That's becoming a problem. Because people cannot afford to get into homes, they're remaining in their, quote, high-density / apartment townhomes longer, and they're raising families in these high-density homes. So that's getting harder to predict. So it's a trend until it's not, or it's not a trend until it is. And that is the latest trend that we're starting to see, is they can't afford to go into homes, so they're remaining in these largely apartments. So but because the apartments are more mobile, people come and go from more often than they do a single family home, that frustrates us because it's harder to track how many are coming and going with our mobility every year.
I also just wanted to just kind of point out that based on these projections, one thing that I'm seeing that is a little bit disturbing me in my schools, we do have a problem, we have a competition, and that is real. We have vouchers, and we also have private schools and charter schools. And I see in some cases just an exorbitant amount of effort being put into marketing the school. And knowing that there's only a finite amount of kids out there, you're not going to solve your problem with this marketing plan. And we're putting a lot of energy and effort into it as if this were a problem that we could really control. And I think it helps us feel better to focus on the part we can control. So I don't want to say that it's a totally bad idea. I just, I worry sometimes when people are acting like, we're going to do this and it's going to solve our problems. And I'm like, it's not going to, because they don't exist.
No amount of marketing
students.
creates more children. Not like that. Jen Bodell and I had a conversation, a hallway conversation a few weeks ago where she said, Steve, could we compare notes and based on enrollment, and I know the marketing that I'm doing at certain schools, and see if they're increasing their enrollment. And I said, well, maybe, but best case scenario, maybe they're only decreasing by so much. Maybe that is what's happening. That they only decreased by 1% instead of 5%. And that's due to excellent marketing. But that's hard to show and prove in a math equation, but I suspect that's often the case.
I just think that we as district leaders and school leaders need to be careful how we're talking about that marketing piece, because and I'm seeing principals spending an exorbitant amount of time on that rather than on instruction. And so I just think we need to be very cognizant about that issue.
It's a tough balance. So given all of that we've talked about and seen, I'm not necessarily coming up with a recommendation from the PAC like I often do, but it's a question of next steps. So based on the overall enrollment trends that we've seen and talked about, given our Area 5 remaining unresolved and under indefinite suspension, and the West Kearns Elementary, which we haven't talked about a lot, but that's planned, the West Kearns Elementary rebuild scheduled to begin later this year or early next year. I think it's hopefully by the end of this calendar year. And which will likely initiate a boundary change consideration at the very least, if not an additional closure. So with that in mind, that's what I wanted to talk about was next steps.
I'll take it a step further. We know for sure with the anticipated timeline for the West Kearns rebuild, which will start this summer, hopefully, and move into the fall, with asbestos mitigation and whatnot. We know that is anticipated to open within a 2-year period, and so we would want to be able to study that area and region to see if there's perhaps consolidations and or boundary adjustments that could maximize the use of those taxpayer dollars. West Kearns is at 470 something. I should go look at the slide since it's right there. There you go. We have been building schools roughly to accommodate 600 to 700, but upwards of 800. We have some designs that could facilitate that. We need to have the earnest conversation about what size of a school we're going to build, and look at if we want to consolidate and adjust boundaries and families into a new school location. That's not just a conversation we need to have in West Kearns, but the year after that, and for 2027, but in 2028. In the Arcadia, Frost, and Truman area. Arcadia is slated for rebuild as well. And you can see what the numbers look like there. So those are conversations that need to be facilitated by virtue of the fact that there's a rebuild slated. And so we need some guidance and direction from the board. I don't know if I sound desperate enough when I say that these numbers are not going to improve. We could spend a ton of money on marketing. Marketing does not increase the birth rate. Hopefully it does retain and attract families back to our district, but at the end of the day, those numbers will continue to decline regardless. Did you want to add to that?
If that's okay. With Ben's thoughtfulness about our current kindergartners, if when they're seniors, only 12 years from now, if we're at 35 to 41,000, it's going to have a much bigger impact than just elementary. We've got to be forward thinking about how does that look.
You think about a network in its entirety is roughly 5,000 to 7,000 students, and we've lost that amount in just the last few years. So, yeah, we have some big decisions to make, and we need this board's best thinking on how they would like to direct us. to pursue studies in the future? Are we hiring a consultant? When would you like us to hire a consultant? Is that a district-wide study? Is that tell us every part and parcel in conjunction with our FCI scores and updated enrollment projections? Should that guide and direct our construction plans? And how I think we embrace what's coming and build up our schools and our capital facilities to meet the best needs of our kids and ensure that they're getting the best quality opportunities and experiences within our school locations. And that means that we can't shy away from additional closures and consolidations at this time.
Can I ask a question? As we do some of these closures, inevitably we're going to need to bus students because they're going to get further and further away from their location. I know in the past when we've talked about some of these other closures and the ability to bus kids, it's been said that we'd have to acquire either a new location for buses and or more buses in order to accommodate this. Does that still remain true? And have we looked at that cost analysis? I know we will get paid if it is over the.
We get reimbursed.
We get reimbursed from the state. But what does that look like also as an ongoing cost? What do we have to cover if that's something that we have to do in order to compensate for that?
I'm not completely sure that it would require more buses or drivers because remember the overall number of students is going down. So you're right, as the boundaries of a school area get bigger, that means more students need busing, but there are fewer students than in that larger boundary. What that looks like over the next 5 years, that would be part of this enrollment forecasting and kind of the heat maps to help us determine, do we need another bus lot or bus drivers or fewer than now?
And to reiterate that example, in last year's proposal, we actually, I think we're holding steady at the same amount. We had a no net loss or increase of bus routes with the adjustments, and that's what the recommendation was based on, is so we wouldn't have to, we could streamline our services.
I can see that, but I can also see, like, talking to somebody who works at West Kearns, she said that's a non-busing school right now. And if we change that to be a busing school to somewhere, that's a, you know, I'm.
Yes, I think that's going to be a
Let me make
reality
this
going
clear.
forward.
I'm not saying we're closing West Kearns. Please understand that. But I'm just saying that's just an example of if we're going to take a school that currently is not a busing school and combine it with another school, that would then become a busing school because it's certainly.
Sure.
Not all of the kids, but some of those kids would be outside of that 1.5 miles.
Correct, for sure. What you would likely see is, not sure again about the number of students bused, but longer routes. That seems inevitable.
Adjusting of school times, things of that nature.
Right.
So that would be something we would absolutely want in the parameters of a consultant to analyze as part of formal recommendations.
I guess that's why I'm asking, because I feel like that needs to be part of that recommendation that we ask for.
You bet.
So I'd like to just have everybody have a chance to, Ben, pose some questions. We are at a point where we've said we're not going to open up. We said this in an open board meeting, we're not going to open up the Area 5 study again. We asked for the DLI study to happen. We asked for the ALC. I want to say ACL every time. ALC study to happen. Those, it sounds like they are started, but they're ongoing, correct? Okay, so we'd like to hear, I think as a board, we'd like to hear that data. We'd like to hear the conclusions of those studies. Do you have an estimation of when those will happen?
I'll have to get with Noel and Dr. Converse and see for sure on the ALC DLI portion.
I expect that will go through to the fall.
Okay, so we can expect then a report in the fall as to what the recommendations are on
For
those.
both
those
portions.
programs, yes.
ALC DLI and also, we talked about the data, tracking students, where they are now, academic data, those kinds of things.
I think that data is important, but I know we've done some analysis of it because of previous studies. So we know, for instance, what some school locations look like in terms of retention after boundary adjustments. I don't want to diminish the importance that the board requests that information. We're happy to provide it, but at the end of the day, it doesn't change our projection numbers either. And so
No, it doesn't change the projection, but I think the reason why we asked for it was because it does affect our future decisions, because if we're going to lose kids, depending on where we place that school, you know, like we're looking at West Kearns Elementary, and is it best to rebuild it there? Is it best to rebuild it somewhere else or whatever? We need to know that data because
Absolutely.
we don't want to lose those kids. We want to retain the kids that we have at least.
Yeah, thank you, Nicole. Amen to everything you just said. That's so kind of the edge of, well, it's not going to change our numbers. Let me push back because that gets under my skin. We know numbers are declining. We 100% know that. But we also asked 4 months ago for data to be collected on where these kids have gone. Now, the reason is Western Hills, I represented it for years. Oker Hills, I closed that school. It was in Kearns, in my precinct. And I've yet to see one data point that shows me how many kids we retained, where they went, did we get them back? Are they going to charters? Did they go to homeschool? Did they just move and not come back? And I don't feel like I can make any decision tonight because I don't have the data I asked for. And it does affect how I look at the recommendations. It does affect my vote because if we continue closing schools and the decisions we make with the onboarding and where we put the schools and how we're doing everything from busing to where we rebuild, then we're shooting ourselves in the foot. We have to figure out how to retain the kids if we close schools. And I don't have that information, so I'm not making any decision tonight until I get some data. I'm not committing to anything tonight for that reason.
And to be honest, we're not asking for any action item tonight, again, to clarify. I apologize. I'm not trying to suggest that we're not going to provide that data or information. I know we provided some single-off reports in the past. We are happy to put that. It is complex data to gather, especially for some of these schools that were closed upwards of 7 years ago. But we're happy to do it. We just have to pull some resources together and some personnel who have the expertise to do that. They do have other responsibilities, and frankly, I feel like they are working on the things that are most important and prevalent. But we anticipate getting that information to you by this fall or late summer, is what the last report I heard. So with respect to that, my point is it does not change the declining enrollment situation and the fact that we do need guidance on a consultant if that's a direction you would like to go. We need to start making some of those decisions now. That's all I'm saying. So I apologize if that was, if I miscommunicated that.
Clark, what are your thoughts?
For now.
Okay.
I have thoughts. Can I share my thoughts?
Karen, did you have anything
I
additional?
said my piece.
Okay, Chris?
I'd just like to add that I've been feeling this way the whole time we've been closing schools, is we have to have a better plan for what the needs are in the communities that we're closing these schools. When we close a school and we don't retain those students, we are not doing what we should be doing for our students. I know we've had success at some of our schools. Our last closure in my area, we did retain fairly well. But that took a lot of effort, and I think we need to make sure that happens at every single closure. We can't have not good plans set in place before we make recommendations. I think the last area when we were studying it was so frustrating because we had programs we didn't even know where we were going to place them. That's a frustration that I can't vote on something that I don't know what's going to happen. And if I know what's going to happen with the program, then I know how to help support that area or that school or whatever it is. So I think, and it's not information I think a consultant would help get that right information, but I also think internally in our district, we have capable people who can give us this good information of what programs and the parameters they need to be successful. So that's my ask.
Connie, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are, I think we need to have a consultant. I think that time is getting shorter for me to even help with this. And I definitely would like to understand more about what a consultant would say. These other things, you know, if they can be included, but I think time-wise, I definitely would like to have more information from a consultant.
Kim, your thoughts?
I agree with some of the statements that have already been made. Particularly just, I don't think we have enough data and the right kinds of data, and that's why we're in this position that we're in, trying to find a better way to do it, right? And as it's gone on for years, I don't see that we've been able to produce the necessary data that we're asking for. So I feel like, yeah, we need a consultant. I don't like that $1.2 million potential cost tag at all. I feel like, you know, you could hire 20 people internally or pay 20 people internally to focus on that for a year. Would you get similar results? I don't know. Is there a way we can have that resource be our own that costs us less? It sounds silly for me to say that. I know we have a whole group who's been working on that, and Steve's done a lot of work, but I mean, like, that's all they do is gather that data with that same money.
I'm right there with you. I think the challenge, if you go back to the slides from November, we faced a perception challenge that somehow the information that Steve was presenting was not independent and unbiased. And because we were the ones providing the recommendation internally, I felt like there was a lack of trust from the community that we were doing so with the right intent and desire. And so as much as I would love to not spend that money and that resource, it felt like the board understood and was inclined to pursue a more independent recommendation, even though the cost is more significant. So I'm open to that. I feel like Steve, I want to say that I think Steve did an amazing job last year. And I recognize there are shortfalls in any recommendation. There's never going to be a silver bullet that fully encompasses and meets the needs of every school community as part of that study. It was not going to fix all the challenges that we had in Area 5, but it was a start to trying to bring those communities together. So I guess you're hitting hard on the exact challenge and concern that I have, which is how do we do that in a way that builds confidence in the community?
Yeah, and that's a valid point. Thanks for that reminder. I just know when we talked about it, the cost tag that was thrown out was a lot lower than that one that I'm seeing tonight. I mean, I do think it's necessary. I think it's essential that we get data on all these points that we've been pushing on. I think, you know, for everything, for where we put a new school, for whether that new school is going to collapse other schools into it, how that's handled to properly engage the community to make sure that they are all on board and feel ownership of that new school. You know, all of those points, that the transition process, how it's gone well and not gone well in the past, how we can fix that, where everybody's going, like all of that data is essential, and I agree with that for sure.
Julie?
I would like to, I mean, I'm kind of throwing out just where I'm at right now. I'm very flexible, but I just would like to get an idea or a place out on the table of what, you know, how to move forward. I think that a starting place is to get our vision around ALC and DLI figured out. Get the data that we are asking for about how effective our past studies have been so we can know where we've, you know, done well and where we haven't and where we can clean up our process. And I think that we could get that together. I think that that is reasonable to ask for that to be done by summer's end. And then in the fall, begin an RFP for a consultant who would come out and look at our entire district and give them 1 year and ask for recommendations in fall of 2027. And I think that it would be a worthwhile investment considering if we are losing 10 million a year. It's a worthwhile investment for a one-time, even 1.5 or 2 million if we need it. If it's bigger because we are a bigger scope, which I would assume it would be more than the 1.5. I would assume it.
A lot depends on the facility.
Right. I don't think we need the facility, just FYI. But I would like to see that. And I would also, so information I would like is what would that cost? Also, I feel like they could do it in 1 year. These are professional people. We're paying them $1.5 million. Get it done in a year. We don't have time to waste. We got 10 million a year at stake here, you know? And let's take care of it. I mean, my big question is, do you also look at the junior highs and high schools? I mean, honestly, I'm like, are we doing this or aren't we? I mean, I don't know that I want to. I'm just saying, I think we need to make sure we're asking ourselves that question too, and that we have a plan for what we want to do, you know? But I would throw that out as kind of an idea to me, that seems like a good starting place where we can proceed from, but.
Is that too long of a turnaround to say, well, not, because we generally start our PAC studies at the beginning of the year, beginning of the year, not the school year. So.
Yeah, so we could.
You're saying have them bring it back next fall.
I'm saying get an RFP, start to figure out who we want.
So
let them start working on it in January, have them in place by January, February, and then we're following our process from there on out.
Okay.
Well, as long as we're kind of thinking out of the box here a bit, the landscape has changed from where we were at 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 6 years ago. Is our process, has that landscape perhaps changed? Does that need to be updated for the situation that we're in? It's a question, not an inference that it is.
Agree.
It's a question that I think has to be addressed as part of this process is that year-long process, while involving an outside consultant, does that take on a different dynamic and would adjust that process and timeline of that process?
Can I speak to that? If we were going to go out to an area, or if we were going to go to a group of schools, not even an area, a group of 3 or 4 schools, I mean, the law is 90 days. And I have felt that that our process is exhausting and harmful to communities because not every community is going to be considered, but we just put fear in them like no other for no reason and got everybody all upset for no reason. When we could have come out as experts and said, you know, this is our recommendation and now we're going to get some community feedback and we're going to we can make adjustments. But I think that year-long process is, I think it's hurtful and I think that I mean, not just hurtful to the community, but I think that it is cause for people to get a bad taste in their mouth about our district and choose to leave.
The reason why I ask if that's too long is because I feel like I've already had principals ask me in my area, and I'm not, excuse me, Kearns and Taylorsville are not as hurting as some of the others, but we still have some of those schools on that list. And I think if we wait 1.5 years to take any action, it's going to be, we're going to have, especially if we're dropping 4% every year, that's too long for us to wait. We're going to have this problem.
I say we go as fast as we can. To me, that is, that's a fast rate. So if you think we can go faster, I support faster.
I'm not saying bring it back this year because we promised that we would study this and we would make sure, but I am saying that maybe we bring it back in January and we examine this. I'm just throwing this out since we're throwing things out. Maybe we bring it back in January and it happens by the end of next school year.
Nicole, I don't remember us promising that we weren't going to bring this back.
We said we would look at it for a year, for this next year.
We said that we would suspend indefinitely the study.
Right, but we said this next, instead of doing a PAC study where we would close something this year, that we would look at all of this stuff.
Well, I never voted on that. Like, I never said that or committed to that. I don't know that I feel necessarily like that was the will of the board. And so starting something right now, to me, is not breaking my word in any shape or form. And in fact, I think a lot of people would say to me, no, get on it.
Well, I don't,
you know?
but I don't think we have enough data. That's what I'm hearing from everybody.
Well, I do agree with that.
We don't have enough information.
And that's part of my idea of the plan.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
ALC data has to be in place before we get
I'm just saying this next year, that I'm going to acknowledge that could put an almost brand new board up here making those decisions. I have to acknowledge that. But I think we're not setting them up for success if we don't get this done first, and we don't shorten that timeline, because we're going to end up with schools that are desperate, that have 7 teachers, that have 6 teachers, because that's where we're going.
So I'm not sure what you're proposing.
I'm just saying that we shorten our timeline, and that it's not.
Instead of starting in February and having the votes in November and December, our only legal obligation in the process is the 90-day notice.
Yeah.
Correct, Doug? And so,
I
let's
would
say
add
you
to
do.
that, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. We have to make the recommendation before the end of the calendar year for it to take effect the following year. So we actually
have to
do
make
need
it
to
in
make a
November,
recommendation by
December.
December 31st if it's going to have effect in the following
Okay,
year.
yeah, that's
coincide
fine, because your vote would be. My point is let's say you do the consultant and we have them in place in January. If we shorten it, instead of, they may need time to gather.
Yeah.
Would they have to make the recommendation in December?
They would typically need several months, 3 to 4 on average, to do the enrollment forecasting alone. And that comes before community engagement, of course.
We could put a committee together after spring break to evaluate and start putting an RFP together. We could certainly put that together and determine if that's even feasible to get some recommendations by the end of the year. In my mind.
By the end of this 2026.
Yes, and I'm saying I don't think that's what you want to do. Let me finish
Are you
really
talking
quick.
about for the whole district? Or are you talking about for
I think
Area
to
5?
do a comprehensive study, we would want to take the full entirety of 2027, the springtime to evaluate data, do some community engagement, and the fall to hone in on some actual recommendations. So a decision could be made by the fall of next year.
I think that's too long, but.
If we're looking at a comprehensive approach where we're evaluating the whole district.
That, I mean, in east to west, that consultant's going to need a long time. And if you want good data, this is a catch-22, because I want good data and I'm willing to wait and be patient, even if it means schools get a little smaller, but that's just going to incorporate to the data they're collecting and coming back to us with.
But also remember, the statute, Nicole, is that if I want to close a school for next year, like if I close a school in February, am I correct? It still can't take place that fall.
Correct. It would have to wait
It would
until
have
the
to be the
following year.
next year. So you either need to close schools by December of this year or by December of next year. And it doesn't matter where you close them in the year, they still close the same school year.
There might be a consultant who can do that. We've never delved into this realm, so.
I don't feel comfortable closing, like having a comprehensive study and closing schools by the end of this calendar year.
We don't have the data.
Yeah.
So to your point, though, I mean, when we
So
talk
that's why I
about
think
this
2027
process being
is our
too
earliest.
long, at the same time, I think a lot of people would feel like that process was too short, especially a comprehensive study. That's my own personal
It's true.
opinion.
I'll admit it. Because we've heard it. You guys are rushing things. This is rushed.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if it was a 2-year study, because I sat through that and the 2-year study, and people said you're not taking long enough, and the 1-year study, you're not taking long enough. So, I mean.
That's so true.
I think getting the data, it sounds like to me that we have a pretty good consensus that we would like to see a consultant, we'd like to see a comprehensive study, we'd like to see continued, we want the reports from the DLI, the ALC, and the,
DLI.
the closure, the retention.
Retention
So
data.
those are the things that I think we are in agreement on. Am I hearing that correctly from the board?
Can we have a timeline of when those should be, when we want to hear those in board meeting?
What I'm hearing, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, retention data by August, late summer. ALC, DLI by, I'm hoping by November. They're making really good progress, so I
gonna say,
think
can we get it
we just
earlier
don't want to
than
do those during the summertime to capture the other networks. So we'll discuss that tomorrow and get a better timeline on that. I just think it would be very difficult to get all the rest of the data that we're hoping to collect by the end of the school year, the current school year. A comprehensive study and approach district-wide that analyzes facilities, consolidations, boundary adjustments, along with and any sort of enrollment data as presented either by a consultant themselves or using other data sources that would be valid. That would be a comprehensive study in the 2027 calendar year, but we wouldn't actually see some recommendations until about probably a little over a year from now, is what I'm hearing.
Is that still, that's my
I just
question,
have
is
a
that
question.
still just pulling out the timeline? Do
On
we
that,
keep
yeah,
going?
I think that's good. On that recommendation, if we're looking at it district-wide, it could be many school closures at the same time. So I know it seems like a longer process, but we could actually make it.
In my mind, we're closing the schools.
Yeah.
And we're going to be done with this. We're going to let it settle for a few years or whoever the board is then. We're going to let it settle. And then if we need to do some things, we can, but we are going to do it.
Okay.
And I'm,
That's what I'm just making
trying to
sure.
jump in
Are
for
we
a few
looking at a
minutes.
master plan is basically what I'm saying.
Yes,
Like, are we
that's
doing a
what I
master
am
closure plan?
Yeah,
and
that's,
study?
and that's been trying to jump in for a few minutes, sorry, but that's one of the things I was going to say. Yes, it might take till end of 2027, but we're going to hit more at once, right? It's going to be a more effective, I think, process. That's what we're going for, right?
I'm just waiting for somebody to use the word comprehensive again. Because that's the word that
Gonna do
needs
a
to be
comprehensive
used.
study.
It needs to be comprehensive.
Right. At the same time, though, I just want to add, I'm fine with that approach on a timeline. I also would like updates on the consultant more frequently, because I don't want us to come January next year and say, okay, this is the consultant option and it's now $5 million. There's not an unlimited ceiling on what I would be willing to support. And so I'm hoping we can be updated on that more frequently, what those options are, and if it's actually something we can, we would be willing to pay for.
So if we're wanting the consultant, it sounds like we want it sooner rather than later. So can we?
We'll get the RFQ committee together after spring break.
Right.
So we'll get an RFP.
I just want to define comprehensive.
And we'll do a thorough, exhaustive, all-inclusive, complete, extensive district-wide study.
I'm not joking.
Steve just told you.
I mean it. I want you to define comprehensive.
The entire district.
Secondary schools.
The entire district.
So are we all understanding that is what comprehensive means?
Yes.
I mean, because that could mean a closure of a secondary school, even if they recommended that, and that has not been on our radar.
And it may mean the closure of a secondary school that is newer, that because of the strategic outlay of where students are, we're just going to we have to deal with that. We have to be honest about that.
Well, and just because they recommend something doesn't mean the board has to do it, but it may be what
You're
they
right.
recommend, yeah.
You're right.
But they might be right. It'll be interesting to see what they recommend.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have your marching orders? Do you have what you need? Comprehensively?
Completely.
Thank you, board members. That was a much needed conversation. We appreciate the direction and feedback.
Okay.
One last thing. I think that if people know this is going to be solved come this school year, that it will help them make it through these next hard 2 years. Like some of these people in small schools, they're holding a very heavy burden, and they're looking at this going, can I do this for my whole career? No, I can't. What am I going to do? But if they're like, I got 2 more years, I think it's going to be helpful to them. I'm not saying it's going to make it all better by any means, but I think it's helpful to be like, I can stick it out, you know.
Just one last, remind me how long a rebuild is on a elementary?
2.5 years to 3 years, depending if we build on site
from breaking
or
ground to.
if we have a fresh site.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
All right. Ben and Todd, you've got 10 minutes.
You got it.
Ben and Todd, you have 5 minutes.
Nice job.
And Mary, I understand you're helping. Is that true?
I'd like to, she does. Go ahead, Mary, you got this. Just kidding. If you don't know Mary, she is our legislative intern. She goes to Utah State, but she is a proud alumnus of Olympus High School. I tried to put those 2 words together. That was kind of embarrassing. So she's going to be helping us present this evening. She helped us out with our legislative tracker. She was on the Hill every single day. She helped us arrange meetings with legislators. She was very effective in advocating for Granite School District. So we'll also be recognizing her as a legislative champion. So we're going to start off our presentation with some funding questions. Is that right? So you want to go through the calendar?
Yep, well, we're just going to highlight at the very right end of this calendar. We are now out of the session. We're past the governor's veto period that ended Thursday last week. And the normal effective date for many bills will be May 6th. So this is the busy season at the State Board of Education and will be busy for us. So we have to start putting policies in place based on legislation that passed.
Our legislative committee meets weekly for about 30 minutes just to review things that need to be done and taken care of in terms of compliance and getting up to speed with more regulation and less resources, because that's what we do, right?
We can skip this one because we just spent an hour on that.
Okay. Population is declining.
This is looking at the state budget, the overall. Often we're asked how much is education receiving out of the state budget. When you look at it from all funding sources, education, both public and higher ed, is the largest piece. But if you break them out, social services receives the most. That's mainly because of federal funds. If you go to the next slide, these are the state-only resources. And when you look at that, if you look on the left-hand side, you'll see that public education receives about 49%. That's in the average range. It's between 48 and 52% in any given year is where that will land. Of the new monies, so that next pie over is that public education received the lion's share of the new revenues that came in this year. I pulled this off right of the legislative website, the things that they're touting that they're proud of. The first item is they were able to rearrange or reallocate 3.2% of the state's budget by going through different budget cuts and budget transfers. So they're proud of that, as well as the ability or the opportunity to reduce income taxes. So that's the next several bullets there. So those are their 2 big talking points right now. If you go to the next page, we have the education pieces that they're proud of, and that is that there is a 4.2% on the value of the WPU. That they provided money for early success and early literacy programs, and also funded the next year for the at-risk student weights. So that's, again, this is just coming from their perspective. What are the things that they accomplished as a legislature? Translate that into what does that mean for the school district? The first item is the 4.2% increase. This number is different than what you saw last week. Last week I talked to you about the unrestricted reserves that come in through the WPU, but when you look at all of the money that comes through the WPU, both for restricted and unrestricted, it's $13.5 million. We're expecting about $4.5 million from the at-risk program. We're already in the process of looking what the matching grant process will be for early literacy. There's also the APIC centers received the $100 million out of the economic stabilization account, and there was an adjustment to the educator salary increase, which was changed. So it's now tied to the prior year CPI as opposed to the prior year WPU value increase.
Really quick question. The Apex Center, there were some board members that had the question, why did we only get $5 million and Murray got $13 million?
I'll take that one.
Yeah, go ahead.
It says formerly called Catalyst Centers, and it should be formerly called Granite Technical Institute. We already do this. We are the model for the entire state. Davis figured it out a few years ago, and the Speaker of the House happens to reside in Davis, discovered what was happening there. We have had multiple governors come into our facility. People know what's happening here. So this is a new program, but we're not eligible for a lot of that funding. We did get some funding to expand some of our programs, but most of those programs are already in place.
So the funding that other districts got were because it is new to them?
Correct.
Okay.
And their kids were coming to our district, like Murray.
We paid for our own.
Yeah. So we got rewarded for being innovative. So congratulations.
Okay. Thanks.
The next slide just goes through the areas that were reallocated or decreases in programs. We talked about this a little bit last week with regards to early literacy software. Translating that's about an $800,000 loss to the district. On the digital teaching and learning, that translates into about a $1.5 million loss to the district. And the elimination of the last pieces of money for school fees is about a $1.5 million loss to the district. So that's where things are standing now as we get into the budget season. All yours.
All right, that is a celebration there on that last bullet of a revised loss of only $3.1 million instead of $7 million. And so as we look at different types of bills and legislation passed, I think this was probably one of our more successful sessions in recent history. I think when this session started, I was demoralized and depressed and thinking this was going to be the worst session ever. And in fact, it was one of the better ones because not as many bad things happened as could have happened. So to that extent, let me explain. You can see our running bill total. There was fewer bills this year, just slightly. So they didn't break any records this year. I'm not going to go through this slide except to tout the bottom portion, which will break out a little bit. You can see the total amount, roughly 21% of bills and resolutions education related, with the roughly 50% pass rate. So those are getting through fast. First bill we're going to speak to, Mary's going to take.
69? Oh, I'm on the wrong one. This one essentially is, so there's already a digital literacy class for students, but this bill changes that class. It was already up for revision for the Utah State Board of Education, so it was pretty popular because they're already going to revise the curriculum for it. And essentially what it does is it changes the curriculum requirements to establish specific standards for digital literacy, like AI literacy, social media, mental health impacts, all of that. And this was unanimously popular in all the committees, and also the Joint Legislative Committee supported it, so it'll be a good thing.
So to be clear, they do still want to have digital literacy. They just want to
Yes, they're
add.
just changing the curriculum of it. So right now it's kind of just like learning how to use Google Doc, Excel forms, all that, and it'll be more like research based on social media, AI, things like that.
The other piece of this changes, it was actually supposed to be the original version of this bill we evaluated with Noelle Converse helped me evaluate this with her team. And this last summer we got with Representative Tusher to get it amended so that the state board could declare what those standards should be and go through the normal curriculum adoption and standards process. And so we were able to successfully amend this bill and support it, and I think it's a good piece of legislation that embeds digital literacy in many other facets of our curriculum and standards. HB 299, we hope to recognize Representative Matthews tonight. She'll be joining us another evening. This was a bill that she ran in our behalf. It extends some opportunities for us to take action in terms of safety plans for sexual-related offenses on school campuses. So if somebody's accused of something wrongdoing, we don't have to wait for the outcome adjudication of a case. We can immediately start to act to ensure safety plans are in place and protect victims in those situations. So grateful for Representative Matthews for running this piece of legislation for us. SB 69 is the expansion of the cell phone bill. And so we'll be talking a lot more about that in the coming weeks as we modify our policy. School construction amendments. This was a bill we originally opposed. JLC was opposed to it. Todd was able to maneuver with the sponsor, although he thought he was talking to me, didn't he?
Yep.
Because I reached out to him originally, and then Todd went and did the dirty work, and we got some things amended in there. So go teams. Yeah. So he was swearing at Todd, so I was grateful that he thought I was Todd, or Todd whatever. But either way, we got our amendments into that bill, and it was acceptable to Granite School District, even though I think JLC was still opposed to it in the end there. This SB 165 is the community backbone bill. This is kind of the United Way bill, the Promise Partnership piece. It did not come with funding that we had hoped, but it does allow for structures and organizations to organize themselves to provide support mechanisms in schools so that we can focus on education, and we don't have to worry about some of these other challenges that our students and families might be faced with. So we appreciate those partnerships and believe that this will be a benefit to our students and families. 167, this was another bill that we worked heavily on. There was actually two bills combined into one, and Representative Romero originally ran that legislation for us. That bill did not go through, but the language was placed into this one, and it allows for expansion of the reintegration timing to 7 days. It gives us a few extra days to work through reintegration for a student who might have some challenges with the law, might be a safe school challenge, for us to find the right placement and collaboration. So it gives us more time, and it's a good piece of legislation. We're grateful for Senator McKay and Representative Romero for all the feedback and help that they gave us on that bill. This is the early literacy bill. We'll be discussing this a lot more in the coming weeks as we need to look at how we're allocating our resources with respect to early literacy. So we'll come back to you on this one. Which was the other one, 273? I'll turn that over to you in a second. So I'm not going to go through these ones. These are the ones we supported, then passed and failed, unless you have a specific question about any of these. Yeah, not going to go through any of those. Do you want to speak to this bill? It says we're opposed, but in the end, we liked it.
Originally, we were opposed. This is the classroom technology amendments, or she was calling it the Balanced Act, I believe. And essentially, it's just puts a lot of technology restrictions, especially from K to 3. There's just a technology ban on classroom screen time except for specific computer science standards or assessments, and then just goes through grades 4 to 6 and middle school, high school, and there's certain standards for each of those. The biggest ones being 4 to 6 prohibits a one-to-one device to student ratio and bans sending devices home with students. But yeah, originally JLC was opposed, but in the end ended up supporting it.
And I would say again that Mary got us a meeting with the sponsors, and we were able to get that bill amended to make it acceptable and even support the bill. And so again, some heavy lifting on the part of Granite School District to get that bill where it needed to be in a good place. This is the bill that reduced our tax.
Can I interrupt you, Ben?
Sure.
On that last one, so are we in our law and policy committee going to need to take that technology and decide what we're going to do?
You're already going to see that reflected. Our board is kind of already on top of this. We've been discussing in law and policy for
for the past year, the use of technology and its abundance, and what is good use of technology, what is bad use of technology, what we'd like to see. We're already looking, our leadership team has been looking at some revisions to our memorandum, and tying into what we expected in this bill to pass. And so, yeah, there are some additional, as Mary mentioned, restrictions that we'll need to place into policy as well.
Okay, so, but the things that we had been working on are not the same as what this bill says. So, not this one, but the other one. And so my question has been, are we planning on continuing on with what we're doing, or are we going to now say, well, okay, this is what we're...
I think the two
because
paths
this
are...
allows for local control in
It
that
does.
bill.
It does. There's going to be a need to align those. I think they're going to the same goal.
So
I think
we'll
we would
have
like
a conversation in law and
Yeah,
policy.
yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Didn't we have that conversation?
No, only on cell phones. This is now about Chromebooks.
Oh, okay. I thought it was all encompassing, I guess, in my brain.
Two separate bills, yeah.
Okay.
This was a bill that changed the hold harmless provision that impacted us last year and this year and next year.
Yes.
And
next year.
So it was a good bad bill or a bad good bill?
It made it less impactful in an impactful way.
So this is the one that changes us our loss from 7 million to 3.1. So we still lose money, but not as much. SB 312, this is actually the one that I think was, did this get vetoed this last week? I can't remember. This was the controversial one surrounding non-issues around the UPAC process, and allowed us to, required us to allow teachers back into classroom spaces, or licensed individuals, I shouldn't just single out teachers, back in classroom spaces for technical issues or safety issues. So if I recall correctly, this potentially was going to be vetoed. I don't remember the conversation now. It's too late at night. I don't know. I'll follow up with you on that one. So here's all the bills that we opposed that failed. There's some of these that I just want to highlight because I think they'll be back. HB 241 is the bill that was mentioned by Michelle earlier. We already talked about school district election amendments. That's a bill that would make school board elections partisan. HB 170 was the referendum bill. We've already discussed that. Again, great teamwork on the part of a couple of districts to get a couple of these bills defeated. HB 440, I'm going to take personal credit for. Sometimes you just try to amend a bill to death, and that's what happened there. SB 169, on the second to last day of the legislature, I was sitting with Senator Todd Weiler on the floor of the Senate, and this bill came up, and he looked at me as it was getting voted on, and I knew he hated this bill. And he says, "What do you think about this bill?" And I said, "Well, I think if the good senator wanted to change graduation requirements, she should run for the school board." And he voted no, and then suddenly all these other Republicans popped in when they saw him voting no and changed their vote to no, and the bill died about 30 seconds later. So it was going to pass. You never know, is what my point is, that the calls and the text messages, sometimes they don't realize what they're voting on and its impact unless you tell them. And so I was grateful that I was in the right spot at the right time, and we got, sometimes better be lucky than to be good, right? So that was kind of fun. And then for that reason, I actually went and sat with them on the last day of the legislative session, waiting for HB 170 to come up just in case I needed to be there again. Just check my email on the last day of the session there. Here's a couple of bills we did not take positions on. We did have some input and worked with on SB 181 and HB 312. And HB 145 we should have opposed. It's a redundant law. It's not a great bill. But somebody passed a bill, yay.
That was the one that was amended though, right at the very, at the end. Right?
Yeah.
And the amendment was not, I think a lot of people didn't know the amendment was in there.
Oh, that was actually...
Or was that a different one? 160?
That was a different one. I don't remember which one it is now. I'd have to go back and
Okay,
look.
never mind. Then
Okay.
erase what I just said.
And that is your legislative session. Again, a huge shout out to Mary for all of her help with our legislative tracker. She came to all the JLC meetings. She was on the Hill. I only bought her Chick-fil-A like once or twice, and she wouldn't let me buy her lunch otherwise. So woefully underpaid intern, did an amazing job. We're grateful for her and her efforts. So.
Yay, Mary. Great job. Seriously. Also, shout out to Ben and Todd. As I go around to community councils, sometimes we'll just, I don't know if other board, I'm sure this happens. They'll ask like, hey, what are the hot topics going on in the legislature right now? And we'll explain a little bit of them. And I said, but don't worry, we have a lot of advocacy up on the Hill. But it's not only being there, but it's the relationships that these two have formed with our legislators. And that's not just a one phone call or a one text. That is a persistent, constant building of the relationship. And that's how it's done. That's how a lot of the work gets done on the Hill. And so grateful for people who can not only be present, but actually advocate in every sense of what that word means.
Well, and I want to huge shout out to everybody who advocated. I think we had a lot of voices that were heard this year, and as we looked at it at our meeting, our USBA meeting just a couple weeks ago, the ones that USBA and the districts, and we had advocacy for the ones that we supported, by and large they passed, and the ones that we opposed, by and large they failed. So it really did work, and we need to make sure that we have that voice consistently up at the legislature. And that means, I know there's not many, but hopefully some people will listen to this, but that we have parents who are concerned and that who speak up as well, because sometimes they don't listen to the people in the education community as much as they listen to our parents who are very involved. So we appreciate the parents who've also stepped out and done a great job in communicating that. So thank you.
I want to point out too that this year, Ben and Todd, you guys did an incredible job of collaborating with like leaders in other school districts, and it was powerful. And I really appreciated those relationships. I think it seemed like that was really a good move, and we should continue that. You know, figure out how to really capitalize on that.
I just wanted to say thanks again also to GEA and PTA. They were regulars on the Hill, and our friend in the back there with the computer, she was up on the Hill all the time as well. So I'd run into her in committee meetings. I'm like, you're still here? So a lot of great people advocating, and thanks for your presence on the Hill.
Keep going, because it happens all year long. So we need to keep those voices going. All right, we're going to go ahead and ask Doug Larson to come up and join us in the front. We have one first reading and 2 second readings.
Good evening, board members. It's pretty close to my bedtime, so I'll cut right to it. First reading, we've got an audit committee and internal auditing policy. This policy is established to provide for internal auditing responsibilities as overseen by the audit committee of the Board of Education. We have a functioning audit committee. We have for some time. This policy essentially just describes what that audit committee does. The audit committee establishes an internal audit program and objectively evaluates the effectiveness of the district administration, governance, internal controls, and the efficacy of operations as defined in R277113. That is the state rule that governs what our audit committee does. That is a brand new policy, kind of created from scratch, but also created directly from R277113. It is intended to be in line with that state rule. So if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to respond.
Our board president is not here, but
I just realized that.
Vice Chair, could I offer?
Yes, go ahead, Julie.
Okay. I move that we approve Article 6B5 Audit Committee and Internal Auditing as a first reading.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second on Article, where am I? Hold on. 6B5 Audit Committee and Internal Auditing as a first reading. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next one.
On that last policy, I do want to just mention thank you to the members of the audit committee, to Todd and others who had some significant input. So thank you very much on that one. Moving on to second readings. We had two policies that we did on first reading last month, and we brought them back for second readings. The first one is Article 6B1, Payroll and Accounting. This was a consolidation of a few policies regarding payroll and accounting. We got a lot of help on this policy from Rich Welch. Policies were combined and edited to clarify and to streamline policy regarding paychecks and pay periods. Policy also authorizes payroll and payday procedures in Administrative Memo 155, payrolls and paydays. I will mention that we are working through the final, finalizing Memo 155. We've been in touch with GEA. Todd has been helpful in that respect as well, and that should be finalized soon hereafter. But the policy, Article 6B1, is what we are here to present tonight, and I'd be happy to answer any further questions.
Any questions, board? Okay, I'll take a motion.
Do a motion. I move that we approve Article 6B1, Payroll and Accounting Policy, as a second and final reading.
Second. Okay, we have a first and second motion to approve Article 6B1, Payroll and Accounting, as a second and final reading. Any other discussion, board? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
For your benefit, Nicole, I did mention that Memo 155 will be sent out as soon as we've got some further consensus with GEA, and you'll be able to distribute that to the board. Okay?
Thank you. I also want to point out, though, because you guys passed this, and that's totally fine, but on the audit committee, it was interesting to find out that the board leadership does not have to be on it. So.
There you go.
We thought it did, because that's what, yeah, so.
Yeah, you can't get off that easy.
Last and final,
There was a celebration.
Saying have been on there for 4 years. Been on there for 6 years. Just kidding.
Okay, final policy of the evening is policy from our fiscal policy manual. This is section 12. You'll recall from last month, this policy is collection of accounts receivable and other debts. This section of the fiscal policy is being updated to establish procedure on the collection of student debt. It clarifies which debts are sent to collections and which ones should be taken with students and parents who have a negative lunch balance. Once again, this was worked on and developed by our foods department. Dana Canino. Dana, what's Dana's last name now? Yeah, Canino. Is her, okay. Dana was the one who helped me draft this one, and it also had significant input from Todd as well. If you have any further questions about that policy, I'd be happy to respond.
Any questions? Not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve Fiscal Policy Manual, Section 12, collection of accounts receivable and other debts, as a second reading.
And final reading.
And final reading.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the Fiscal Policy Manual, Section 12, collection of accounts removable and other debts, as a second and final reading. Is there any further discussion on it? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion passes.
Thank you, board.
Thank you. Superintendent report.
All right, see if I can do this fast. Dos Mundos family night, awesome time. Hunter High Unified Play was incredible. I cried. Cozy and Reed at Fremont, they had a volunteer donate 3,000 books. They hosted a breakfast, and every kid got to come in and read with an adult and get a free book and some donuts. So I got to read with some kids. Magnus Steam got to spend some time at their reading event as well. The last week of session was a hurry and a bustle. And again, just a huge shout out for all those who helped make that successful and accomplish the things that we were able to. We had the Mill Creek State of the Youth Address that was presented by the Mill Creek Youth City Council, which is composed mainly of students from Skyline, Olympus, and Cottonwood, and some other schools that we won't mention. But the The mayor is a student at Skyline. She did an incredible job, and it was just a great
And
event
my
with
niece.
Mill Creek City.
You know she's my niece too.
Yeah.
Bragging, sorry.
Yeah. That's her niece, by the way, in case anybody didn't. Okay. There was the spring dance concert at Kearns High School. This is the second year I've been able to attend. It was amazing. Those girls did a great job. Those kids did a great job. There were some boys who were dancing too. They did a good job too, not just the girls. There's a kid, a third grade kid named Joe at Wright Elementary, and he got my business card and he sent me an email and he invited me to his STEM night. And so I was like, okay, well, I'd love to come. So I went out there and I went around the whole night. He showed me around his whole STEM night. We did some activities together and we filmed a little video together. So shout out to Joe. Yes, if you're a student and you email the superintendent, I will respond. And if you invite me, I will come and visit you. So we had a great time and that was a great event at Wright. And then, as already been mentioned, we're having some good success in collaborating with our parents who are on school community councils, and those network meetings will continue through the coming weeks. And that's all I have.
Thanks. Clark?
I have two quick things. It's been widely reported that Chick-fil-A sales within our district were down significantly between January 20th and March the 5th, which is the legislative session that Ben was attending so regularly. And secondarily, Chick-fil-A plans to open a branch or a satellite franchise up on the Capitol for next year, just to accommodate Ben. Lastly, I think all of you are aware, but I want to remind you that we have an anonymous hotline or tip line for any kind of fraud or malfeasance. There has been historically a little bit of confusion between, we have kind of an anti-bullying and harassment reporting mechanism as well. That's been cleared up as of recently. So I think that's a good thing on our website, and you can get to our, from a financial standpoint, you can get to our fraud hotline for a couple of different ways or multiple different ways through our website. But the audit committee does receive a report on those regularly as they come in immediately. And then we have a follow-up mechanism so that we run to ground in any kind of report that we receive as they come in. Some of them we are unable to follow up further because there's a limited amount of information. Some of them are quite detailed, and we run those to ground through our internal audit department and the audit committee. So just keeping you aware in that regard.
Karen?
The Benefits Committee kind of had a quick interim meeting. This was not on the normal schedule, but it's, I mentioned last time that our health costs are high. And so the Benefits Committee met this afternoon. In years past, they don't like me to go to that one because I'm on the other side of negotiations, and so I didn't go, but I know it happened. So hopefully we hear that they came up with some good solutions. So that's my report on the Benefits Committee.
Thanks, Karen. Chris?
Just a reminder, the Budget and Finance Committee was our March study session, so we all got to participate in that and get that information. So we do not have one coming up this month. And then District Community Council, Julie asked me to just, basically kind of facilitate, which was just introducing it. But it was, I just think those are so valuable meetings. So if you can attend, and I know we always have different parents there, which I love. And I heard feedback from the last one that they just really appreciated the information they got. So thank you, Todd and Mitch. And there you go.
And am I right? They talked about parent-teacher conferences, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got feedback.
Yes,
about
JD's not
how to
there, but yes, thank you, JD, too. It was really good, yeah.
Yeah, we got some feedback about that and some really good, I think some good ideas. Did we get some good ideas? Tacos, a taco truck.
Oh, yeah.
That was brought up.
Idea for sure.
That's all I have.
Connie, go ahead.
So just tomorrow, USBA has a policy webinar, and if you're interested, I'll tell you what they're talking about, different policies. Also, the pre-delegate assembly is June 5th in the evening, and the delegate assembly is June 6th. So all of us are invited to go. It's at USBA offices, so if you can, go. It will be setting goals for this next legislative session. So some interesting things go on. And that's all. Other than USBA, if we were going, we'd go to the Sunday.
That's a fantastic idea. Todd's house, we're going to go have Sundays.
I think it's not a Sunday, it's a full lunch, if you recall.
But the important part is the Sundays.
I'm just saying, if Todd's hosting.
Sorry, go ahead, Kim.
All right, Salt Lake County Parks and Rec Advisory Committee did meet this month. They did not complete any real business, but discussed a lot of information items such as new point of sale system that's rolling out, upcoming events and things like that. So on that note for us, I think the takeaway for me was anyone who's interested, there will be a ribbon cutting event at the Big Cottonwood Regional Park East Playground on Thursday, April 16th at 10:30 a.m. So if anyone wants to attend that, I think they rebuilt the playground. It's apparently safer and more engaging, has 5 different slide options, some climbing and balancing features, right?
Wow.
Also, like renovating their surrounding area, revitalizing things, including the parking lot and benches and trees and things like that.
Have they ever
So-
entertained what we talked about as far as the busing issue at all? Have they talked about that at all?
Yeah, that's the separate committee they organized to discuss
What did they?
the PALs, which I've only met once with them. They've canceled some meetings, so hopefully that picks up again here in the next month. But yes, it's come up, but it has not, we haven't gotten into any real discussion yet on
just wondered.
Solutions, but yeah, it's still out there.
Okay.
That's all.
Thanks, Kim. Julie?
Chris did all my jobs this month, but also I got a lecture from the USBA people that I wasn't informing my board about what I'm doing in leadership on USBA. So I'm going to start talking about that here. This month, traveled around the state and met with different boards and talked about the legislative session and also talked about what pain points they have that they think if you went to your USBA regional meeting, which I missed, the same things. And man, I'm learning so much from those rural areas in particular about the tricky things that they go through. But you know what? They're always like, this is so hard that I'm like, well, you don't have this or this or this or this. And so everybody has their heart. It's very interesting how varied we are, you know. And also Connie and I are going to spend a weekend at the end of this month in St. George doing a retreat to organize USBA for the year.
Thanks, Julie. So we did the 8-hour task force. You all got a report just so I can let the public know. We reported it to the board, but since that is part of negotiations, it is not something that we're going to speak about yet in public. But I feel like we have, it was something that we worked well with GEA on and got to a good place and got some good recommendations out of that. And we look forward to the negotiations and how they go. Law and policy, excuse me, you guys saw the board audit policy, which is a new policy, and that's great. We did also discuss, just so you're aware, the senior high school graduation standards and requirements. And we did also talk about the electronic devices and acceptable use of technology, that SB 69 that passed and what that potentially could mean for us. And we are looking at some of the other bills and how they have affected our policy and what we need to change for that. I think that's all of my, is that all of my committees? I do want to say USBA, it was really good to be able to talk about, since Julie missed it, but Connie and I talked about it, and I think it would be valuable for all of us to maybe even just talk to Julie and Connie, and if there's any priorities that we have. One of the things in talking to Ben strategically is that maybe we need to be more proactive in running a bill that instead of those other ones that we disagreed with, that we need to run a bill that would take care of it, but in a way that would be good for us. So just some thoughts that maybe we need to be a little bit more proactive on that end, and it would be really good for us to do that.
Is that something to even put on a board information, like study session agenda to discuss, you know?
Maybe.
Because we can't discuss it together, only individually, and maybe together we could have some thoughts.
Well, and that's kind of.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's what the spring, I mean.
Regional meeting is supposed to be for that, but if we aren't all going to that.
We have a chance to talk about that and say, this is what our priorities should be, this is what we want to see happen, and so.
If you guys are interested, I have a list. They've taken what all the boards said are their priorities, and now they've ranked all those issues by like, oh, this was mentioned 10 times, this was mentioned 9 times, and then we'll take that list in April or sometime soon to JLC, who will then start to whittle that down to a rough draft of what our priorities could be that they will present at the delegate assembly in June. So if anybody wants to see that list, I have it and would be happy to share it.
Let's talk about that, because that might be something to bring up at study session. Anyway, I think we are, unless there's any objection, we've reached the end of our agenda, so with no objection, we will stand adjourned.